someone invaded you, and if someone invaded you, and I ran so far away, I bombed them night and day, but destroy USA. A drone appears above your head, a mower bomb comes falling down on you, falling down on you. The fleet is moving nearer still, the Strait of Hormuz, it comes in view, the oil must flow through, and I ran so far away, the bomb I bomb them night and day, but destroy USA.
Signal slow, hidden codes start to flow. Late night stream, neon dreams, Synctank calls in between. Synctank show. Truth and static, let it blow. Watch the side. Patterns forming in the mic. NK whispers, ultrasound, paranoid American breaks it down. Anime cold words with fire, search is laughing, pull the wire. Synctank show. Dark transmission start to stay awake. Every symbol is
Why aren't we a ski movie? We need to be a ski movie. That's really what
Hot
we're
dog.
missing. My God, that's the answer. So good to see you. And Nicole Wordsmith is back.
Hey.
Hey, girl. Yeah, I'm glad you're back. I mean, it's been a while. Are you doing well? Is your mother doing well? Are you feeling well? Okay.
If everyone would just pray that she'll get her refund back from her trip insurance, I think.
Oh my God,
I think
that's
she's
her main
going to be
concern.
healing.
Do refunds exist still? I thought those were gone now. That's like boomer stuff, right? Refunds.
No, she got the trip insurance. So dealing with that is
How do you explain? It's like, no, I really didn't fake this. I actually did have like a emergency. Yeah. I mean, they don't have refunds anymore. They just have war reparations. So I guess that's kind of the thing. So I mean, you missed a lot. I've been busy too. Yeah, reparations for from corporations for being a labor source or something, like women, right? Today's Women's Day, International Women's Day. Is that true in America?
Oh yeah.
Do you know how big of a deal this is here? Because like East Germany or anywhere like by Russia, anywhere there was like Soviets, like they celebrate the worker and the labor force, and who does more work than the woman and the mother. So Women's Day is always this huge, huge thing to communists. So happy Women's Day,
When I think of happy women, I immediately think of Eastern Europe.
Well, it is where they invented daycares and kindergartens and nurseries and ways for women to do other things than just constantly take care of
I
kids.
thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but a kindergarten was where they were literally planting babies and they were growing like Cabbage Patch, and then they put them
Absolutely.
on orphan trains and then gave them out during World War II.
Yeah, because humans are actually made
Oh.
of dirt. That's why, that's why they call these
Neverland
people.
explains this very clearly.
Why they
What
call them
about
krauts.
the Fountain of Life program from Nazi Germany?
Yeah,
Is that relatable somehow? Like, I've seen footage of like just they have all the babies like laid out on a big table, and they're just like, we got all these babies, like, because it was the thing is that abortion was illegal for Germans in the 1930s, but it wasn't illegal for Jews or for people that they didn't want to populate. And at that point in the 30s, like earlier, they were just trying to get Jews to go to Palestine. So that's kind of a weird aspect of everything, the Nazi desire to just, hey, the Jews can just go away. The final solution came later, because they were just like, it was a cost thing too. It's just like, wow, how long is this going to take to get all these people to just go over there? We could just get rid of them. It'll be easier. So, yeah.
March 8th is 38, and in Gematria, death is 38. So it kind of makes me think about how women brought death to the world through Eve.
You mean Amet? Amet is
Nice job, guys.
Oh, Met is 38. No, Met 40.
I would argue
right.
that perhaps it depends on your interpretation. But if you take it from a Promethean point of view, that Lucifer was legitimately trying to warn Adam and Eve that they were going to be consumed by the gods because they weren't even allowed to have the tree of life to begin with, right? These are two trees. Maybe they're forbade even from having the tree of life. That it's probably not necessarily Eve's fault. I don't really blame her.
Right, but the thing with Yitzchayim, so you have a Met and you have Met, which is truth and death, which is what's written.
Like Met Life, of course.
Yeah.
Met Life Insurance is named
Meta.
after the Hebrew word for death as a matter of fact, which is interesting. I don't know how that relates to Snoopy exactly. Maybe it has to do with the Red Baron. But whatever the case, you have.
Why does MetLife relate to Snoopy? Is Snoopy part of MetLife's?
Yes, yeah. Then their ad campaign throughout the 90s was Snoopy.
Snoop Dogg is like Anubis, who is the underworld judge of the dead.
Oh, that's probably exactly what it is for real, though.
And Snoopy was fired after 31 years of service. They got rid of Snoopy in 2016. Right before the election, right before the Trump election, MetLife got rid of Snoopy.
Snoopy was originally the very first book that guy. What's the name of the guy who did Peanuts? I can't remember right now.
George Schultz.
Yeah, thank you. That he was a vet. Yeah, totally. And he Red Baron is a story about Snoopy getting. This is his first book that he ever did before Peanuts anything else, where Snoopy gets shot down and has to get through the terrain fighting.
Right.
There you go.
Because there actually was a black person because Charles Schultz was in the Signal Corps, and he was around D-Day. He had a friend or something who was named Snoopy, and they both had met at the Woodstock Army base, which is why Woodstock is this little phantom bird that only Snoopy can see. Because
he's the equivalent of Big Bird because Big Bird had Snuffleupagus, which is his invisible friend, and then Snoopy has Woodstock, which is a smaller version of Big Bird.
Well, exactly, but the main difference is I don't know if Big Bird was alive at one point. Woodstock is definitely about his dead friends who died in the war, right? Because he's a traumatic victim of abuse and of violence, and all the parents around and the children are completely disconnected because of the generational divide over the war. And
what's crazy is this is the exact same story as Winnie the Pooh as well. That it was a shell-shocked veteran that basically had to create this nice reality where nothing had sharp edges and bad people didn't exist that you could retreat to, and that was basically the 100-Acre Wood.
Oh
yeah, and so the original book of the first book of Winnie the Pooh was specified to be the exact measurement of the golden rectangle. Exactly. So he was like, my book has to be this exact measurement, which was not the standard for books. So they made it special for him. But and then Winnie the Pooh is named after a bear named Winnie, who's named after Winnipeg. And so, and Winnipeg is the peg. It's like, I think this is encoded into Mad Men actually with Peggy. I think Peggy is named Peggy because she's the cornerstone to this Babel temple that they're building, which is why, like, at the beginning of every episode, you see Don Draper like falling, and then there's like the monolith episode where he almost steps into an empty elevator shaft, and like it's all about, it's relating to the tower that they're building this tower together, and so she's like the cornerstone. That's why the very first episode is her first day at work, and then it's also it shows the shift of the ages, so that when in the last season everybody turns on Don, and then he ends up going to Esselin ultimately, but everybody just like flips on him because he represents the old way. He's the old guard, and then Peggy becomes the keystone of the temple rather than just on the side, which is where she starts out. So it's like the whole show is kind of showing how the keystone becomes the center stone of the archway, and it's representing, you know, women's lib or whatever, but it's more than that because it shows psychologically like what's happening, you know, what's happening culturally. So but yeah, so Winnipeg was the center of all communications for North America, and there's an argument like that even like Kubrick's like "See You Next Wednesday" thing, where what's his name, the Frank Poole, the astronaut who dies, like the last thing he says to his family, or his family says to him, is "See you next Wednesday," which is why, who's that director that used that in everything, including the Thriller video and Trading Places and all of that? What's his name? Let's forget his name. You know what I'm talking about?
This is blocked. I just know it's in Germany.
I don't. Is this a euphemism for "See you next Tuesday"?
"See you next Wednesday" I actually think relates to Mercury because he's the messenger, and if you look at the capital in Winnipeg, it has Mercury at the very top of it. Even like they have the Ark of the Covenant like represented in the front of it. They have every part of the capital in Winnipeg is representative of Solomon's temple. To all the measurements, everything that went into everything is a recreation of that, and it's because it's the center of communications at the time. So like that whole thing in Winnie the Pooh, when it's like it's Wednesday and everybody's blowing everywhere and they can't, like, they just have no control. It's relating to, I think it's related to, there's a stronger argument even beyond this. Like I talked to Sonic about it because he's lived like next door to not the home of who's the writer of Winnie the Pooh?
A. Milne.
Thank you. So he had a friend who lived in Brighton, and that tree that says Sanders above the tree was his friend named Sanders. So he like modeled Winnie the Pooh's home after his friend's home. But there's this whole thing of like Wednesday representing communications, and the episode of Winnie the Pooh, or the story of Winnie the Pooh, where everyone's just like caught up in the wind and they're flying everywhere, is speaking to communications becoming so rapid that it's like this will, like, what Winnipeg is just like kind of not like, it's like at a whole other level that they were predicting of what telecommunications would be. So we're experiencing that now, right? Like we're in Wednesday, right? Because it's just like total chaos, because when communication becomes that rapid, information spreads so quickly, so that the powers that be aren't able to exist the way they always have. So it's like, yeah, it's an aspect of it, but yeah.
Funny enough, had that in common with Charles Schultz being in the Signal Corps. Obviously, the British Royal Signal Corps is different, but Milne was a pacifist, but he heeded Kitchener's World War I cry of "Your country needs you," and he enlisted in the British Army, becoming a signaling officer. Right. He was sent to the Western Front during the Somme offensive. Shortly after arriving at the front, his best friend Ernest Pouche was killed. Winnie the Pooh, Ernest Pouche, was killed just as he was settling down to his tea. A shell came over and blew him to pieces. Much of A.A. Milne's work makes references to intellectual class struggles, perhaps direct result of the atrocities he witnessed, interpretation of what he saw versus interpretation of events by his superior officers. So yeah, Winnie the Pooh is super deep, actually. It's pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And numerological.
It's interesting too that they killed off Snoopy right when Trump came into office. Since did you hear he's the only president for like 100 years who didn't
have a dog? Right. Yeah. And of course that's weird because it's a major. Sorry?
Snoopy's dead?
No. But MetLife stopped having him as their spokesperson. Okay. Then again,
he broke free. He's liberated then.
Snoopy might, I mean, realistically, Snoopy's a dog who probably would be, whoa, everything just went super red.
Why does a dog need human life insurance anyways? It's kind of weird.
No, he's actually telling you to get the life insurance. So there was Mad Magazine had it where it was like get met, you'll pay, because it used to be get met, it pays. And so
Yule, like Yule pay, like Yule tide.
Yeah, dogs are guardians of the underworld, like Cerberus.
Let me just plug in too on the Winnie the Pooh military tip that there's the movie called Piglet's Big Adventure, or Piglet's Big Movie, I think. I am convinced that is about like some Ewan Cameron style MK Ultra mind control, because the whole premise of it is that Piglet has this diary of all of his memories, and he ends up losing this diary and coincidentally loses all of his memories. And what happens is that they find it, like everyone gets together, they find where Piglet had lost his diary, and they're going to go and bring it to him, and someone like drops it into a river, and they all wash away, and now the memories are gone forever. But what they do is they write new memories on all the pages, and they give it back to Piglet, and they're like, here, we found your memories. But it's like their new version of it. And I mean, in the context that everyone inside of Winnie the Pooh represents some sort of military trauma, it just seems so fitting that movie.
Of course, that's the best way to explain Piglet.
Dude, that makes so much sense. Like Al is totally like some general or something. He was like more superior. Yeah, totally. I see it.
God, I like that.
Eeyore is just totally a shitbird. He's just, like
he's black pilled. Yeah, he's the first black pill character you're gonna introduce the kids to.
He's seen some shit, clearly. But he's still an optimist, right? Because like they give him the story of his present, right, for his birthday. They
have Eeyore's birthday party in Austin every year.
They have a what in Austin?
They have Eeyore's birthday party in Austin every year.
Really? Yeah. So like the main story, right, is that Eeyore shows up, everyone's like having a nice day, and Eeyore like walks through all slow and sad, and they're just like, oh man, how are you? And he's like, well, not that it matters, but it's my birthday today. And they're like, oh my God, we didn't remember his birthday. And he's like, and it's okay that you guys didn't remember. He's like, oh man, you're ruining of course we remember it. And it's a surprise. We have a surprise party, and there are going to be presents. And you just gotta, just like, why don't you go over to Rabbit's house and wait for the surprise? And so he's like, oh, really? Okay. So he's flattered and like so surprised because he's completely convinced himself that nobody cares about him. His birthday doesn't matter. And the fact that he never brought it up, they had no chance to even know. So he goes off, and then they're thinking like, what are we going to get Eeyore? Like, what presents could we give him that would be worth, God. And so like Piglet's thinking about it. It's like, well, there was that party before with Christopher Robin, and we had that balloon. And I still have the balloon. So I can give him the balloon, and that's a pretty good present. Like, it's the best I can think of. It would be something. And then Winnie the Pooh's thinking, like, well, what do people like? And he's like, well, what do I like? Well, I like honey. So I'll get him honey, of course. That makes sense. And so they're all trying to get presents, and they're running off in different directions. And, Piglet's super small and running super fast and trying to get there, and gets the balloon and pumps the balloon up and is running back with the balloon. He's like, oh my God, I got to get back to this party. And like, and then he's like trips, and like Piglet lands on the balloon, which breaks his fall, but hits like a branch or something he tripped on, and pops the balloon. So now Piglet's like, oh God, I've ruined this. Yeah.
Did Pin the Tail on the Donkey exist before Winnie the Pooh? Because I
assume so.
That's the whole thing, is that that's the joke though of him losing his tail, right? Is that you got to pin the tail back on the donkey, and then he's totally Eeyore because it sounds like a donkey. Eeyore.
Yeah, I guess it's attributed to 1899, so it's actually it's just about 10 years or something, or 20 years before, 15 years or something before Milne brings up so it's probably a fad at that time, right? But okay, so Eeyore's at the party. Piglet's got this pop balloon, and he's like walking back all depressed. Like, what is he gonna do? But he's gonna bring this pop balloon. He doesn't know what to do, and then he can at least explain. Pooh finds the honey, and he's like, this is great honey, but I don't know how good it is. I hope it's still good. And he tries it. He's like, man, that is really good honey, but I should make sure it's good. It's still, and he just starts eating it. And then eventually he's like walking to the house with an empty barrel, And so now he's like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? Because you got a pop balloon. I've got this empty barrel. We don't even have anything to give him. And then Eeyore sees it, and he's like, wow, is that what you got me? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, that's great. That's amazing. That's because, you know, I love balloons. But, you know, like a big balloon like that, you can't ever put it anywhere. You can't do anything with it. So like a pop, like this little tiny, you can put it in your pocket. You can put it anywhere. You got this balloon you can bring. It's portable. It's way better than a big balloon. But I don't have a place to put it to keep it safe. And now I do. You got me this jar. I can put it in this jar. It's going to be completely safe in there. You know what, guys? You really get me. This is the best birthday ever, right? And that's like the most optimistic moment in his life, right? I think he's not lauded enough for being the optimist.
I think he's just catering he's just patronizing everybody else though.
No. He genuine, and you can tell from the writing, he genuinely experiences pure blissful joy at this, and it's when everyone else is brought down to his level, because everyone else, like, they're all defeated. Piglet's feeling defeated. Even Winnie the Pooh feels somewhat defeated because he doesn't know what to do. He's without any clue of what solution to provide. He's just gonna confess, this is the problem. You know, I did this. I own up to it. But like,
because everyone's ultimately afraid that he's going to off himself, and then it's going to be on their conscience. That's that's basically what his character represents. Is like someone so shell shocked that any minor inconvenience might set them off, and you need to be concerned for them.
Right. And it's kind of interesting that you bring up pin the tail on the donkey, because what do you have to do to pin the tail on the donkey? What's the main thing that makes it a challenge?
You have to be blindfolded.
You have to be blindfolded. So there's this sort of like, you're going into this blind battle. I don't know if that's too literal, but I think
no. I think you're reminding me of Journey to the End of the Night. You know, like
I'm hearing blindfolds and donkeys. That sounds like early 20th.
That sounds like a Democrat party. Yeah. One of them good Democrat parties back in the day. You know,
there's no elephant in the 100 Acre Woods. You know. But and so the symbolism of Christopher Robin too is that it's Christopher, so you have Christ encoded into that, and the robin historically gets its red chest from pulling out the thorns from Jesus's brow. That's the symbolism of the red robin as it relates to Christianity. So there's like on both sides. So I've always wondered if Christopher Robin is if there's something to he's processing in his mind, he's processing the gnosis or something. There's like something deeper there having to do with what Christopher Robin is actually trying to like reconcile and make sense of in his own head, you know.
And a big part of it also in the book is that Milne is explaining to Christopher Robin things that Christopher Robin has been through that didn't really happen. So he's telling him
there is an elephant in 100 Acre Woods. Where's the elephant?
Well, it's what are they called? The heffalump or something?
Heffalumps and woozles.
Those are the Republicans showing up. Yeah.
And who are the woozles? The Tory, I suppose. You know, like the Labor Party. But
don't bring up Zoobilee Zoo.
Yeah, it's Jimmy Savile and the woozles. Right, with his heffalump. But
hold on. I want to also just mention that one of the things that I'm still trying to come to terms with is if Christopher Robin's, I would almost say he's like a demiurge as opposed to like a Jesus. But let's just say that he's either one of those. Then how does Christopher Robin, like, what's the analogy? Christopher Robin is to Andy from Toy Story, as you know, Winnie the Pooh is to
I was thinking Woody. I didn't say it, but as I was speaking, I stopped and I was like, do I want to go on that tangent? But I kind of do. Like,
well, because Andy is like, if he's still a god, he's a young god, but there's millions of young gods and millions of old gods inside the Toy Story universe, and they latch onto these gods, and it seems more like actual pagan gods or like not pagan, but like old like Sumerian style, or like you would move around to different cities and you got like 20 gods to pick from, and that's sort of the Toy Story universe versus the Winnie the Pooh universe.
Right, because Toy Story and Winnie the Pooh are exactly the same in that it's all this kid's imagination with his toys. He's there with his toys.
There's one main difference though, is that you have to, I would assume, like mentally travel into 100 Acre Wood in Winnie the Pooh. Like you don't just like turn off on an exit and you're there. and people just start showing up. You have to like participate in being there. Whereas Toy Story, like they're here, but they can't let you know that they're here.
Toy Story
that you know that they know.
Toy Story is based off of Freud's The Uncanny. And the idea is that when he turns his back, the toys come to life, which is in Freud's The Uncanny, he describes that of why that would be so terrifying. So if you caught it, like if you turned your head quickly enough and you saw that your toy was actually was being animated, and that speaks to AI, and that was Kubrick's obsession with The Uncanny. And so like Kubrick cited Freud's The Uncanny as his primary inspiration for how he did The Shining. And so that's why there's all this Shining symbolism in Toy Story, but also connected to Buzz Lightyear realizing that he's not a real astronaut, that he's a fake astronaut, right? So like when the shining pattern shows up leading to room 237, that's the room that he's in front of where he sees himself on the television and freaks out. Now, I have a theory that synchronistically Andy speaks to Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman like played in the attic with his toys all the time and went into his imagination of all these different characters. That was like his whole thing, is that he played with toys longer than most kids do, because he would get into the different roles and go into his imagination big time, you know, like into like his teenager years. Apparently he still played with toys. But and Andy Kaufman, his alter ego was Tony Clifton, right? So Danny is Danny,
now it's Donald Trump, but
right. But Danny and Andy are phonetically an anagram, in the sense that if you pronounce them out, if you say Danny, Andy, you hear that? So like Andy Kaufman, he had Tony Clifton, who's the little boy that lives in the back of Danny's throat, but Tony. And so this you've heard this weird rant before, but it goes into REM's If You Believe They Put a Man on the Moon, which was where the title for the Andy Kaufman movie with Jim Carrey came from, was Man on the Moon. If you watch the music video for REM's Man on the Moon, it cuts back and forth between a cowboy and an astronaut, because you have Woody and you have Buzz Lightyear, right? So like that, like, see where I'm going with that? So like, If You Believe They Put a Man on the Moon is all about, did we land on the moon, which connects directly to Buzz Lightyear realizing he's not a real astronaut.
You know,
never went to the moon.
I got a weird, yeah, that's the funny thing about the movie really being called Man on the Moon, is that it's saying that if you believe what you see on television, you're a goy. You're a goyim. That's the joke of the movie. It's the joke because there's two kinds of comedy. There's at least two kinds, but comedy is always at the expense of somebody. And so the old way is to be vaudeville. You come over from a pogrom, and because your parents can't speak the language, you start slipping on banana peels and things like that. You become the butt of the joke. You pay the burden of being funny, and then the audience laughs at you. But if you're truly an artist, you know, you want to make the audience the art, in a sense, and provoking them to feel funny is only part of the fun. It's also fun to provoke them to feel rage or confusion or love or hysteria. And so to be able to make people feel a thing, it shows you how simple the human condition is. So making people believe what they see, and with Andy Kaufman, that was constantly what he did. He made people believe he was from Caspia, an island that sank, or that he's Tony Clifton, this horrible lounge singer. And you have someone in the audience who he abuses, and you think, God, that's terrible. How could he do that to that innocent person? But someone he's working with, right? It's Zamuda, you know, that's building this entire thing. So if you believe that, and I imagine the wrestling thing was because he liked to get pegged. I'm not sure if that's exactly
no,
right.
I think it's he was a visionary. He saw what was coming, I think. So like where you have this kind of backdoor chauvinism or whatever,
backdoor pegging, though, that's a sync right there. I'm
thinking that this is no, it's like that whole thing where it's like he's the number one female wrestler who's not female. And so it's the whole he's like, I'm the female world champion, and it's like, dude, that's the future, dog. Like I don't know, it feels like he saw what was coming. I don't know.
I felt similar way about R. Crumb, because like R. Crumb was all about like strong women that were like constantly dominating him.
Yeah.
And it originally was like in like a weird fetishy way, but now according to like today's standards, it would be like incredibly progressive and like uplifting. I think maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. RGZ Mac has a great comment. He says, "Man on the Moon, Tony Clifton wasn't real, and neither was the man on the moon." That's a good point.
That's the idea. Is if you believe they put a man on the moon, then you're the kind of person that would believe that Andy Kaufman's character was legitimate. And so there's two kinds of people that believe what they see on television, and people that don't, right? That see through it. But I mean, this is interesting because of the Jim Carrey thing recently, right? Because Jim Carrey played Biden, and I'm trying to get the image there for that. Jim Carrey played Biden, and that was his kind of one of his famous roles that is most recent for, the woke Hollywood agenda, is to play a president. And, he says that he basically became Andy Kaufman, or at least Tony Clifton is somehow like transposed into his
Tony Clifton is so similar to Trump. But the whole point of Tony in The Shining is that you are your shadow. Danny is Tony. Tony is still Danny. We're like, just like the supernatural elements of The Shining. Like if we entertain that, is one thing. But you can approach The Shining the same way you can Rosemary's Baby, where there's no indication of the real supernatural occurring. Like, is it all just psychology? Like, is it all just the subconscious? And they're treating the subconscious like it's somehow separate from the individual. But like, Danny is Tony. That's kind of the point. This isn't a separate individual. Just like in Joker, when it's like Arthur Fleck is Joker. Joker isn't a separate individual, which is what the whole court proceedings in Joker 2 is about. Is determining, was this you that did these things, or was it the Joker? Very, very similar. In fact, probably the exact same, like, arcana related as the Fool.
But it's interesting when you look at here's Zamuda, and Zamuda literally said that he didn't believe that his best friend and co-partner Andy Kaufman killed himself, died of cancer. He believed that he faked his suicide. And that
why are you saying suicide? He didn't commit suicide. What are you saying?
I don't know why I'm doing that either. I mean, the idea that he was written off is cancer. I don't know why I keep saying it like that.
Because it's so similar to cancel.
Maybe there's an kind of instinctual reason I'm saying this. I'm not sure.
The moon is ruled by Cancer.
Okay, I'll take it. I think he may have killed his own ego in a sense. He removed the character Andy Kaufman because he was sick of that character. And that's what Zamuda believes. And even to this day, has made that point. Maybe he's lying and he's just messing with people. But the idea that Andy Kaufman would return someday, and they, around 2000, they predicted that would be, sometime around then. But then, that article from Newsweek from 2016, right? And this is just before the election again. Newsweek, is Donald Trump really Andy Kaufman in disguise? An investigation. And you might think that this is kind of like a funny article. But, it's interesting when he starts talking about Vance, right? When would you expect to have had Vance be in an article about Trump? Not 2016. Like, this is before. Vance was disturbed by Trump's ignorant babble about the danger of vaccines. I remember thinking, this guy's got to be pulling our legs, Vance says. I'd seen Man in the Moon a while before. I just started thinking about other people who mess with us. His brain landed on Andy Kaufman. Trump's demeanor suddenly reminded him of Kaufman's more abrasive character. But
this is the thing, is that Trump is totally resonant with Tony Clifton, which all
you gotta do is watch one Tony Clifton video and you realize this is Trump. Vance raves.
Oh my God! Well, archetypally, it's true. Like, he fulfills an archetype, and Tony Clifton is that archetype, right? But for Tony Clifton to be totally fake and an alter ego of Andy Kaufman is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, or like, really, how much does Andy Kaufman really exist in and of himself? I mean, you were finding your own identity at a certain point. You get to explore everything. He's into all sorts of transcendental meditation. I mean, there's a lot more to Andy Kaufman than people realize. And then that translates to this Jim Carrey kind of Illuminati character here who, you know, how much do you care the idea that he was replaced? I think it's really an interesting idea that this is not just plastic surgery like Val Kilmer or something like that, but that this is, you know, like this is legitimately a stand-in to replace Jim Carrey, because Jim Carrey's been
let's just start with the most rational take first, and then like wind a little bit backwards from that. So let's just say that my version of the most rational
is Tony Clifton took over his body and pulled himself inside out.
You beat me to it.
So he had an appearance before where was he at? I thought it was Germany, but I think it's France where he accepted the award. It's France.
He spoke in French the entire award. Terrible Quebecois French, but he did do it.
Right, but what's weird is that it was only like 2 weeks before he did have an appearance where he looked like the old Jim Carrey. So he didn't have the weird facial thing going on. So it's like either he got Botox in that period, but which
he's
really
always
hard to
complained about.
believe.
He's constantly said that he's like he always mocks it. He says he never wanted to do it.
He's known as the fucking face. Like, why would he do that? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm
Botox,
actually
so
like,
you can't move your muscles.
I'm on the fence if there's something else going on. Maybe he had some kind of allergy. He ate a peanut before the thing.
Well, he has talked about using doubles before. He said when he goes out into town, he pays someone who looks like him.
Explicitly said that he does that. And then we're supposed to, at the time, the way he said it, it sounds like he's being in jest, but it's very possible that he does do that. And that's been the argument for the Paul is dead thing from the people who are the most serious people that I've come across, of people who have been at that since like 1969 or maybe even 67, who believe that Paul McCartney had died, or at least questioned it. And then every single one of them, the people who had been at this for so many years, they all said in the end that they didn't actually believe that Paul McCartney had ever died, but they all insisted that there is a very specific time frame in which there appears to be at least one double, if not two. And so that was like, I think, a year or something, where it's just like he looked different in specific ways, and those differences stayed consistent. The eyebrows, his ears matching his nose, his height, like all of these things were different. And then it went back and forth for a while, and then it landed back on the old Paul McCartney. So like all these people who you'd think would be just saying Paul is dead because they've looked at every single goddamn photograph of the Beatles through all, and like just circles and arrows in a paragraph on the back of each photo, you know, before the internet was even around, they just analyzed it to holy hell. And they're just like, look, these changes stayed this way for this long, and then it flipped back and forth, and then it settled. And so that idea that, he probably just wanted to take a break from the whole thing, maybe not just in terms of public appearances. And then, you know, no one had seen Paul McCartney for like a year, and people were speculating on if the Beatles broke up. And then the first footage of him, that this is something in the Rotten Apple series that actually checks out, is that he was gone for a year, and the first footage we see of him when in his return was in Africa, and it was like an 8mm like film of him in the back of a Jeep, and it was the first time that he just looked totally different. But it'd be one thing if he just never went back. You're like, oh, you know, these changes occurred in this time where we didn't see him. Are you muted, Thomas?
Oh, so this is when he came out of the rhino's butt, right?
which is for sale right now. Did you see that the rhino?
It was at like $4,000 when I looked, and it hadn't hit whatever reserve that they were expecting it to hit.
I think my friend Quarter Black Garrett is in the process of buying it. He might be the one to get it. He's actually they're looking at trying to buy it actually, or win the auction, which I think could totally happen.
Someone played the long game on that one. Imagine like that's been sitting in someone's storage. They're like, this thing's going to be worth a ton.
No, but like, think about why is it now?
I know why. Because Rhino,
it's reincarnation.
Republican in name
only.
Name only. So like Tony, Danny, Andy, Tony in name only. You get it?
Yeah.
He's Tony in name only. Yeah.
Right.
Let me rewind back though.
Also because he's dead. He's also because Jim Carrey's probably dead. And
because let me get my rational version out first, because I think there's still something to it. The rational version is that it's all just facial surgery or injections or whatever.
How is that rational?
We just
went over why that's irrational. Okay. He's a face actor who moves all of his muscles.
He's known as the face.
I know, I get it. Whatever.
But let's and have Botox. You have to choose between the two. Why would he
They'll
do
just
that?
say that this is what they're going to say is rational on all the TV shows and the newspapers and the
Okay, all the
media. So
Freemasons are
let's
gonna
start
lie
with
about the rationale.
the premise
Okay,
of
alright,
what
alright.
everyone else is going to be, using as their baseline. But
Goyim, who believe that
it
men walk on the
indicates,
moon.
let's just say it doesn't apply to Jim Carrey, but just the fact that this does happen constantly to multiple actors over and over, where they're like, no, I didn't. And everyone's like, yeah, you did. And then it just becomes like up to whoever's interpretation. And I think that, let's say that it's happening because it is, that means there's like an actual little conspiracy, like a small little group of high paid doctors that are collaborating with each other and just like trying to figure out like, how do we get more and more people into the fold? Because the more people that start looking different, the more and more becomes normalized. And then all of a sudden it's not even taboo. And then people aren't afraid to admit that they had some of it done.
Or Colombia.
No, well,
It's not.
There's a difficulty there because if you look at so first of all, he shares a birthday, right? So there's a sync. So Andy Kaufman and Jim Carrey have the same birthday. Which is it April 1st, or am I crazy just for saying that?
It's January 17th.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, there's some
January 17th. Okay, so what was the reason? Because of Capricorns and Aquarius or something? You want to get into?
Well, what I want to say is that Andy Kaufman was all about where you're doing a practical joke that you go so far with that you yourself don't even know if it's a joke anymore. Like,
dude, he wrestled with Blondie. Come on, that's base. Of course. This is how people became famous, like the fantasy film Dragon Slayer. Like we women would wrestle him, and then they got their careers going. Like it's all acting.
Well, the rationale for getting people to question something in this way, the whole Tony Clifton joke is a statement on that's why it's Man on the Moon. It's can you encourage that level of critical thinking in people where something that's so obvious is still considered so outrageous. Like, in other words, like people really believed that Tony Clifton wasn't Andy Kaufman, and then they appeared together just to fuck with everybody because he had his buddy play him also. So they went back and forth where Andy Kaufman would be Tony Clifton, but he had another guy playing Tony Clifton too. And but the point is for people not to just believe what's put in front of them, which is also, as far as I can tell, the rationale for the Beatles, at least pushing the rumor. And I think it was probably the production company too that was like, look, if we do this thing where Paul gets a break, we insert somebody else in, we'll put subliminals and mess with people with the idea that is he dead? And then Paul McCartney, this is so speculative on my part, but then I like to entertain it though, and then Paul McCartney changes his mind at a certain point and is like, I don't like this, people think I'm not even real. And he's like, no, I'm me. And I can't take it back because he's already gotten people tripping on it. And then he has to live out the rest of his life with people thinking he's freaking dead and that he's a replacement. And he's like, no, but he can't tell everybody that he just inserted a replacement because that was the big joke. So I don't know. It feels very relatable to me.
Well, I want to find this one clip really quickly. Hold on.
What are you talking about? It says he was executed. Joe Biden was executed in the files. You saw a fake Joe Biden. So if that drops, right? Epstein files are in your face. They're like, they're eating babies. Whoopi Goldberg is on and Whoopi's like, Angela, I gotta tell you, if you say people out of this, you can't be jumping to conclusions. I was personally there to have some candy. And I'll tell you, I'm here for people. And yes, was on the list, but hey. Dropping.
It's true.
It's not real.
I'm gonna try to a little further forward. Is it like, yeah?
Did you say Tim Curry's not real? What
yeah, because Tim Curry's in the stroke, right? Like now, Tim Curry's had a stroke as of 2012 or something like that. He had that stroke during a massage, and so he's got like this whole thing that whether that's actually Tim Curry, but
it was comforting. I think.
Where's the
he
one?
was?
No. Okay, here you go.
Does anyone remember the Isaac Cappy videos? Do you know who Isaac Cappy was?
No.
I'll let you do the research. Go look at as many Isaac Cappy videos you can look at. And there's one where he brings up Jim Carrey. Okay. And it's I started in like 2020, and I had to watch it over and over. I'm like, what did he just say? What did he just say? And it's pretty. Basically, what the guy said is a lot of things that are being revealed right now. It's just what I'm getting at is, again, what I said the last time with the files and all that, and they can try to distract it all they can. I don't think a lot of people are ready to find out that your biggest icon, I'm not saying Jim Carrey, whoever your icon is that you will never walk away from, go, that didn't happen. Absolutely not. I think we're slowly about to get dripped of finding out who did what.
All right, let's watch the Isaac Cappy clip, actually.
By the way, I'll just fucking out him. Jim Carrey called me up last week. I talked to him for 5.5 hours. He's like begging me to like get a deal with Q. Like he's afraid of the fucking brackets. I'm like, and it's just like yammering on with the crap, but like not owning up or doing anything fucking meaningful. Meanwhile, just lying to everybody. Guys, you are fucking cowards. You're going down. You're gonna fucking die. That's it. You're gonna die. If you ate kids, you're gonna fucking die. You can't get over that shit. That's a death sentence. You cannot fucking live. But what I'll tell you that you can do is possibly save your soul. You can save your soul, and I can help you save your soul. You will fucking die, though, so get over it. I know you all are afraid that you sold your soul, but I think you can get it back. You're gonna fucking die, though. That's it.
All right. So why is he saying?
He has like caps in his name, and caps and Capricorn, and like there's a lot of death symbolism with caps and popping caps and attacks on the Capitol.
So
yeah, it's in my pet goat, right? He's eating caps, and that's
we talked before, I think, about Charles Rocket, right? The Charles Rocket conspiracy.
No,
Okay. So this is the when Paranoid American was fooling around pretending that was a rational explanation, that they Botoxed the muscle and that he had a stroke like Rosicrucian Hitler.
I'm just trying to like my mind goes, if I went home for the holidays and the whole family's there and this topic comes up, like what's their baseline? And their baseline is not that's an irrational approach. That's like, how did you see he got, Botox? Like,
what I want to do is, are you left-handed or right-handed?
Don't worry about that.
Because I want to show up with the shaved head
for your social
and just tell everyone that I'm Thomas at your family Thanksgiving. And then when they ask why I'm using the other hand, if you're right-handed and I'm left-handed, let's assume. Because that's the thing. Andy Kaufman, I don't know, I think was left-handed.
How do you order? You order three like this, or do you order three like no? Was it like the
right? Careful.
I order three like this.
Don't give yourself away.
But Jim Carrey is left-handed, and so the entire award ceremony, he's signing with his right hand. He's holding things with his right hand. He's doing things that a left-handed person like myself would never do, right? So the fact that the most reasonable explanation is probably that he murdered Charles Rocket, right? And so that's the story that's the conspiracy theory. Jim Carrey is
I can't believe in full Cappy. I feel
this isn't necessarily Cappy.
No. I know. I just want to say, because we just watched him, the Jim Brewer talking about Cappy, and then we watched Cappy, and I've always, and people are going to dislike me for this, but they just, that's gonna happen. But I felt this way, similar like with Kathy O'Brien. Like I think what Kathy O'Brien was saying is similar in that there is truth to this. There's for sure truth to this, but her incentive I don't see as pure completely. Like I don't entirely trust her. And it's weird. It's weird for me to say that because I like Tracy so much. And Tracy kind of gave Kathy O'Brien even more of a platform than she otherwise would with that interview and writing the book on it and everything. And so Cappy feels to me like, what movies was he in? He had like a 3-minute scene in like, what was that? A Hangover movie or something? I can't remember. It was
Yeah, I
something with
forget.
Zach
I don't
Galifianakis
even
or something.
exactly.
And it's like it feels like he was like trying to like get somewhere, and he was
But
super
Zach
spiteful.
Galifianakis interviewed
He was
Obama,
pissed
and he
off.
was close to all of these people that were
Right.
close to the center of everything.
The reason why I can't completely believe Cappy is that I can't help but get the sense that he had an aspiration to really make it in Hollywood, and it wasn't happening for him, and he was kicking rocks, and he probably had some bits of information that had come through to him, but he's not in the echelon. He's not in the club. So when he's saying, I talked to Jim Carrey for 5 hours, I'm sorry, I don't believe him. Like, I don't believe him, and I think that he's going by things that he had heard, and there's probably validity to some of them, but at the same time, it feels like this thing, like I was saying last week and prior, that like when you talk about like, well, like the elite's rationalization for things, it's like the end of Utopia. Sorry to do this, but the end of Utopia with John Cusack feels like exactly what I would really expect from those elites. That there's some rationalization that they can still paint themselves as the good people and say that we're, you know, like I don't think that they're ceremonially like eating a whole baby. I think they're getting fucking stem cells and they're eating freaking foreskin and they're doing like raw and placenta, and they're just like, and maybe even like just freshly aborted fetuses, and they're like, well, it would just go to waste otherwise. This is for our health. Aren't we doing great? Like I could see them rationalizing that. I have a hard time with that other place that people tend to go with it. And I do think Pizzagate was real. And I do think that they were abusing small children and this and that. And then when I look at the Epstein stuff, mostly what I see is them debating on whether or not this girl who was underage here, was she brought or was overage here, of age here, she was brought to some place where she wasn't. And they're picking at that. And then meanwhile, you got some giant effed up thing happening with the goddamn ping pong clubs that I don't even know the full degree of. But when it comes to them eating babies and this and that, I think it's a stem cell thing, and I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. And so, like,
I don't know. In the defense of this, because this gets really close to like adrenochrome tangents, right? Like this exact
extremely close. Yeah.
My best analogy that I can think of that I've brought up plenty of times before is like the ornithine bunting practice, where it's not like anyone necessarily is like, oh man, it tastes great. I love just feeling the beak and the bones of this bird, like crunching my teeth. Like, I don't think anyone really enjoys it, but you do it because it's a thing that you do as like a status symbol. And if you haven't done it, which is the same way I feel about becoming part of Nexium, the same way of going on Jepstein Island's Black Book and getting your name in there. It's like this like willing status symbol that if you haven't done it yet, then it means you haven't hit that level. And it's just another extreme version of that. It's no longer an ornithine bunting. Now it's a human baby.
Well, okay, so let's start with, I was on a train in Salzburg a few weeks ago. I did tell you this, and there was a guy who saw me and knew who I was, like, and he was like, Andreas Xirtus, like right on the train, which was really, really neat for me. But he watched the Synctank. Anyway, I'm standing next to him, and he's this giant of a man, and there's this little Scottish terrier. And this terrier is just barking. And we had this crazy conversation afterwards about like space time and everything else. And he's quite on the level. But I'll never forget the moment because I told him, you know, it's usually the small ones that are so loud. And he, you know, because he's so giant and this dog was so small. And this is how we ended up conversing. But we were talking about how Scottish Terriers were bred originally for fox hunts, right? And so if you think about it, royals are associated with dogs. This is a conversation I've had with you before, Thomas, right? That royals, like the Royal Order of the Pug is the Catholic Freemasonic dog, and it's associated with such. And you can see
not
that
Freemasonry.
With the Catholics in the it is a Freemasonic sense.
No, not Freemasonry. It's the whole point is that they made a non-Freemasonic organization to get around the Pope banishing actual Freemasonry. So the Order of the Pug, it looked like a duck and it talked like a duck.
It is.
But it was called a pug, and it was not.
It's a
Freemasonry.
proxy. It's a proxy to Freemasonry.
Okay,
it's not even. I mean, it's not a parody of Freemasonry. It's a proxy.
But see, here's where I think that it's worth picking that apart a little bit. Is that the entire role of the Vatican is essentially just thousands of years of legal paperwork that's stacked up with like legal precedents. So if you can find a legal workaround for any religion on the face of the earth, for Catholicism, I think you're allowed to apply workarounds.
See, it's a para-Masonic society. A para-Masonic society, meaning it's conjoined to the Masonic.
No, all right, let's do paranormal then. Does that mean that paranormal is the same as normal?
This is in the book Proofs of a Conspiracy, where it's from 1778, where he describes, what's the name of the author? I can't remember. Do you know, Thomas? Proofs of a Conspiracy is a short for the title, where he describes how Freemasonry was infiltrated, and that basically because the whole thing is ultimately, let's be honest, made up, the grades are made up, that you form a society and then you take in members from the other society and say we're the true head of this thing. So anybody can do that, and I'm not saying that that's what this is, that they're saying they're the true head of the thing, but there's nothing stopping from anybody forming an organization and then recruiting people from the other one, or even just doing your own thing and saying we're this. Why not?
Just to really quickly answer your anecdotal question, para is both a Latin and a Greek prefix. And in Greek, which normal, by the way, is the Latin original word, Greek, it would mean to be beside or connected to, right? But in Latin, it would mean to ward off or to be oppositional to. And since paranormal is a Latin word, or at least it comes from Latin etymology, of course, it would mean to be opposing normality. But in a Greek sense, right? If we're talking about para-Masonic, which I assume Masonic is probably more of a Greek.
I'm a paralegal, so would mine be like a?
Yeah, you're connected to it's a Greek idea to be connected to the legal system.
I'm a paranormal.
This is semantic samurai, which is a interjection point that we have. But alongside legal professionals. Sorry,
you interviewed Leo Zagami. And Leo Zagami, I've seen an interview with him, not with you, unless if he did this again, but where he
I've also seen him holding a pug, by the way.
Where he shows his documentation of the grades that aren't supposed to exist, that he claims do, and he gives back into it where degrees, where the OTO and Freemasonry meet. And the argument is that these other grades are just like a lot of the practices have to do with sex magic. And so there is a surprisingly strong argument that what's being communicated in Eyes Wide Shut is that those people are actually where the two systems meet between the OTO and Freemasonry at the same time. And so, and that could be related to like the two heads of the, or at least how they're relating to it.
The Royal Arch, right? So the Scottish Rite, and then the Royal Arch, and the Royal Arch were into Manly Pete. No,
I'm not talking about the Royal Arch degree, because that's what 31st.
No. I'm talking about the Lodge, the Royal Arch Lodge.
Oh, okay.
Because you have to remember that Scottish Rite is Albert Pike. But Albert, I mean, not originally actually, but it's associated with Albert Pike, and
he's considered the founder of Scottish Rite Freemasonry.
No way, not even close.
No, yeah,
really?
No, yeah, he's hundreds of
his
years
book
later.
Came out in like the 30s.
No, his book came out in the 1880s or something. But he also
Albert Pike did was he wrote Morals and Dogma, and he was the first one to help provide like a standardization of Scottish Rite, and before that. Everyone had these like random pockets and their own like various degrees, and he like consolidated everything into this degree system that then gets adopted by Scottish Rite. But he didn't create Scottish Rite. He was just like,
he projected it as though he did. Is that the deal or something?
No, he was a Mason. In fact, he was a Mason at sight. He was he self-initiated with the help of the Grand Lodge Master of one of the Confederate troops, right? Because he was involved with the Native
That's weird, because the OTO also existed before Crowley. And I used to be able, there's like information on that used to be more accessible that I can't find now.
Sorry, Thomas, you were trying to say though.
Well, because OTO predated Crowley, because Crowley joined OTO and then decided to make Thelema based on OTO, and then he also made Thelema based on what he got from Freemasonry, but Freemasonry would have predated OTO, so like they all kind of feed on each other a little bit. But
Freemasonry with the Jesuits after the Jesuit expedition.
Albert Pike's big credits usually is that he wrote Morals and Dogma, but then like I don't know how much you can trace this exact claim, but I know that like within Scottish Rite, the claim is that the order out of chaos, that's attributed to how it started as like just insane various pockets of non-standardized Scottish Rite Masonry, and then there was a consolidation of standardization that was part of what it's like a sync in itself. The order out of the chaos that existed before that just happened to also go along with the order out of chaos, which was like the little slogan. So it's like Scottish Rite members are basically Synctank for grandpas.
Yeah.
So I read Morals and Dogma, and something that struck me throughout was that like it's basically sync. Like he's literally like all the way through, he's making connections. This is connected to this, is connected to this, connected to this. And a lot of it is so debatable, but it's presented as though this is just the way it is with this confidence. And that confidence is really convincing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even see that.
He was also a lawyer. So like part of his job was that he would just go in, and this is also crazy, right? Because people will be like, well, he was racist and he was KKK. And it's like, yeah, kind of. But also,
he was also protector of Native Americans.
Also was like going around to Native Americans that were having legal issues and would just represent them. It was only
pro bono or for
by the way, not just any of them. And he would represent them in court, and he would win things for them. He would win them land back. He would win all sorts of like punitive damages and things. And so he became kind of like a folk hero among certain tribes of Native Americans. So it's like it turns into a very complicated angle of like, was he straight up racist or was it something else?
Well,
like,
you can be racist without being ethnosupremic, you know. Also, you can have like respect for different indigenous tribes and call that racism.
He definitely had choice words for blacks.
Right. I feel that way about Blavatsky. Like it feels like when because the quotes,
but he also had interesting relationships with certain blacks
that are racist are so far in between in how much she wrote, because she's so insanely prolific, and people will take a little snippet of something and run with it and it feels to me that there is a respect there, but there's also the language of the times. So like I don't want to just like make excuses for Blavatsky, but at the same time I'm like, as far as like racism that existed, she seems pretty like it doesn't come across as that. Like there was a book on Jung and anti-Semitism that I got from my rabbi for his birthday one year, and he read the thing and he was like, I don't see it. He was like, I don't see the anti-Semitic. I read the whole book. It was like Jung in the shadow of anti-Semitism, whereas trying to argue that here's all these cases for him being an anti-Semite. And somebody like my rabbi was looking at like, well, he's like, well, at the time, this is so tame compared to what all these other people were saying, that it's just like, he's like, I don't even see this as anti-Semitic at all. Like he was like, this doesn't qualify. He was like, by today's standards, you could make the argument, but that's because
a purity. If you look at it like a purity test,
yeah.
But you know, I mean, we're so many levels down the way now. But just because you said that about his relationship with blacks, you know, he was like one of his best friends with Thornton Jackson, who is the Grand Lodge Master of, you know, the Prince Hall Freemasons in Pennsylvania or something. I forget which state it was. But you know, he ended up having several black friends. He had a black barber, which he had positive relationships with, and he was like cordial with the Prince Hall Freemasons and respected them. You know, I think he had particular issues with non-Freemasonic culture, and he saw Freemasonic cultured blacks as being separate, the same way he saw Freemasonic whites
liked
being
them
separate.
Being separate in Prince Hall Freemasonry. He was
glad. Well, so did Malcolm X, though, right? Like Malcolm X thought like the respect of different people's culture is racism. To say that they deserve to have their own values and that we can't impose our values on them is racism, right? So
he for sure had a quote that was like, if we ever let blacks in normal Freemasonry, then like Freemasonry has completely lost its way or something. I'm paraphrasing whatever version he said.
Because he wanted segregation. Segregation is different than separation, right? Segregation is sort of like when you have Malcolm X said this, you have a fence between your property and your neighbor's property, right? It's not that you're forced to be separated. You can still visit on their terms, and we can have barbecues that are in the middle, but you have a right to your own boundaries and your own space. And he
wanted autonomy for black people to exist as, you know, as they
and Native Americans. Actually, this is the thing. And the reason I brought all that up was just because Albert Pike also wrote another book, which was like the Ayurvedic deities and the Vedic magic. And if you I remember when I first started looking into Freemasonry, I was like, what are these guys like? And you see they all had long hair and they were into Kundalini yoga. And you're like, oh my God. These are just like Santa Cruz people in the 70s.
This is very skewed, because if you're looking at York Rite, you're not going to get any of the same vibes, not even close to it.
course. But this is the thing. The York Rite was into tantric sex magic because they were interested in the Ayurveda. Not everybody, but that was a major thing going on.
Scottish Rite, not York Rite.
York Rite was into sex magic in the 1600s originally. In the 1660s, something in the Libertine period, the York Rite was known for being having tantric rituals. And I think the Scottish Rite was associated with the Hellfire in America, but the Scottish Rite wasn't necessarily as into, like, I don't think of sex parties when I think of the Scottish Rite.
You're not supposed
to. Have them.
You've been trained to not think of that. That's kind of what I think Leo Zagami was kind of arguing, is that all these people, and I say that for Freemasons too, because Freemasons, like if you're, even if you're 33rd degree, you may not know that these other degrees exist that connect directly to the OTO at the same time. And so you feel like you've got this privilege of knowledge and there's a dignity to that. And it would really be offsetting if all of that just came out completely and people were like, well, what are we even doing here?
But it's the same as college. You can get multiple degrees like Van Wilder if you stay in, and they don't all go up. Sometimes they go different directions. And so making alliances between, like Paramasonic, having multiple groups that have different agreements together is a way of having proxied experiences where you don't say every Freemason or every Masonic guild are all practicing the same things. That's the point of having degrees.
Right.
Each one has a thing to teach.
What's weird is that Crowley will give indications of things that he knows from like traditional Kabbalah. So like you'll see him reference the 216 letter name derived from those 3 verses of 72 letters each, where Moses is standing at the Red Sea and he sings this song of 3 verses and how that's related to the 3 pillars of the Kabbalistic tree and all of this stuff. Like he'll reference it. And what's weird is that like a lot of these guys, like if you look at Mathers, if you look at Eliphas Levi, if you look at all these people, a lot of them are such outsiders to traditional Kabbalah. They're basically feeling around in the dark to some degree. Whereas like, how is it that Crowley was actually so much more knowledgeable on a lot of these traditional concepts? So I have to question, like, and somebody said in the comments, they're like, can Jews be anti-Semitic? Of course they freaking can. Anybody can, because what qualifies actual anti-Semitism as opposed to what the ATL, ADL, and what AIPAC want to push as anti-Semitism is when it's so laser focused on the Jews and the Jew problem that the same things that you could say about them, you're disregarding for all these other people. So if it's just you're obsessed with the Jews and everything comes back to the Jews, like every red line of string connects back to the Jews, that it amounts to anti-Semitism, even if they're valid criticisms, because if you're not going to say the same criticisms for other people, but it's only going to be on the Jews, that is a thing. But I would argue, and I don't think I'm alone with this, that the ADL and AIPAC are more responsible for anti-Semitism as it's existing in the world.
Well, they've been defensive of anti-Semitism cases for many scores of decades.
If you want to turn everything into anti-Semitism, the word becomes meaningless, and that's the same problem that the left keeps having, is that they keep overemphasizing something to the degree that we don't even know what is what anymore. We can't even describe what a hate crime is if everything becomes a goddamn hate crime. So like, and you need to be able to have valid criticisms of any government, but if you're only focusing on one group and then you're making excuses for everybody else to the point that you can have like a completely oppressive regime that's like mass murdering its people, but somehow you're still putting the blame elsewhere. It's just like, it gets crazy because you're just like, dude, like your criticisms are now not going anywhere because you isolated the thing so much that now what the hell are we even talking about? There's no perspective. That's the problem with hate. If you just hate a fucking group so much that you're gonna, ignore everybody else's issues, that is anti-Semitism.
Would you prefer hate or apathy?
Don't they kind of amount to the same? Like they fluctuate, like if you're apathetic, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know if anyone's ever been afraid of being attacked because everyone was apathetic.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good point. I always find
I would say apathy is way more like, so if Israel was apathetic or if Iran was apathetic, then there would be no defense systems. And think about the example is New Amsterdam, right? The Dutch citizens were apathetic to the British taking over, so they destroyed the wall and they conquered them. If they had some skin in the game.
Okay, let's do like a less than historical reference though. Let's say like the
Just
kid
make
that
something
had
up.
to mine the cobalt for the phone in your pocket versus like the kid in the ping pong basement or whatever. Like what? Like there's a version of apathy. Like no one hates the kid in the cobalt mine, right? They're just completely apathetic, and it's like,
There are totally
yeah.
racist people
I
out there
guess
that
maybe
probably
5
hate
or
them
6
just 'cause
kids
of
might
their-
have died making my phone. I don't know, like a
Right.
Chinese kid might have died, and an African like a few different people might have died making my phone. But there's an apathy behind it versus like, I hope some African kids died making this phone. So I don't know, but like one of them at least puts it on the map, because if there's hate, now there can be
It's
a
kind of like how I feel
resistance.
about
Now there
Rolf
can be like
Harris.
a movement to make you stop hating, but it's much harder to start a movement to make you care about a thing that's not even on your radar.
Right.
Rolf Harris made all those cute songs about Tiny Kangaroo Down Sport and everything, but apparently he also was like a Jimmy Savile character. And you have to wonder sometimes, like, how many kids are you willing to sacrifice for like a Michael Jackson like pop star? You know, because the music makes the world a better place, but at what cost? You know.
I have to qualify something because this is a bit of a nuanced topic. So when I say, I'm like, it's kind of like one of those, like, for lack of a better word, like even when I'm saying anti-Semitic, can Jews be anti-Semitic? And I say, of course they can, and here's why. We all should know this, but Semitic relates specifically to the languages. So like if there's Semitic languages, so that's the argument that it's like, why are we even qualifying the Jews as opposed to other people when they're all Semites? Or people are saying two things at once, because they'll argue, oh, the Jews in Israel aren't real Jews, the Khazarians or whatever they want to say. I don't think that the DNA actually shows that. But
Beachmaster says asking if Jews can be anti-Semitic is anti-Semitic now. Oh,
right. But it's a trap, and it's the same trap as Islamophobia or even transphobic. You know, when you're saying you're afraid of a people, like that's all it can be. Like if you're going to be
that was why the freaking Shia LaBeouf interview was like my absolute favorite, where he was like, yeah, what, like if like some guy, like some gay guy starts touching me, yeah, I'm afraid of that. It's like make me homophobic. And it's like he literally described that he was afraid of gay people. It's textbook definition of what homophobic would mean.
Yeah, I think he did it on purpose. The more you look at, Shia LaBeouf is probably a genius. I'm starting to realize, because he's such a like method actor. Like I thought he was completely crazy and stupid.
Do you think though?
I think he's like, faking it.
Could you Mr. Magoo your way into being like a comedic genius?
Sure, but I don't think he did. I feel like it's the same thing with Norm Macdonald, right? Norm Macdonald was able to pretend that, he was a genius for so long, and you realize, being a fool is a lot less terrifying or threatening. So I'm going to play the everyman, the lowest common denominator, play the fool. And, it took him a long time to perfect that as a character.
So let me ask you, do you think that the multiple cases of plagiarism that Shia LaBeouf has been involved in, I think there's at least 2 or 3, do you think that was like an intentional, let me disgrace myself so I can start from rock bottom? Or
familiar with this?
One of the main ones that's on my radar that he's had like multiple one of them was like he ripped off the Spirit Cooking Lady, some early stuff, but also there was a comic book that he adapted into like a short series, like a short film.
The Spirit Cooking Lady, you're talking about Marina Abramovic?
Marina, yeah. I think that he had done some things that were, maybe that was just derivative, right? But there was one specific case where he put out a short film and claimed that this was his film and his short film and everything. And then it turns out, like, beat for beat, if you were to look at all the scenes and look at a comic book, he just ripped everything off of this comic book, no attribution, like absolutely nothing, until the guy was like, hey, wait a minute, like this is my stuff. So like when that happened, I wonder, is this the work of a genius? Or is this the work of someone that's like just trying to make a name for themselves? And if they're still a genius, was this planned? Like, did he do this on purpose? Like, I'm going to actually plagiarize someone and then claim that I didn't, so that it actually gets drawn out and people know, like, oh no, I for sure plagiarized this. Then like, what is that play? Like, is that part of the genius play?
Maybe. I mean, it brings more attention to an otherwise ignorable art piece.
Perhaps. I mean, it's a good point.
And it makes it like it's something that probably could not have otherwise happened because it was a controversial work. So for it to be made popular this way, I mean, it causes. I mean, Shia LaBeouf is the voice actor in the Disney dub of Nausicaa, right? Which connects to the Prince Bernhard Bilderberg world Wildlife Foundation, New World Order, Georgia Guidestones conspiracy. He's quite aware, and his creation of the "He Will Not Divide Us" is the tip-off to me. When he did "He Will Not Divide Us," it seemed like he knew what he was doing was uniting people, and not in the way that because if he said we're going to go out here and unite people in the name of Trump, then they would have canceled him way harder.
It was absolutely brilliant. And that's why, like, when you say, when you question whether he's a genius, when he was doing that in 2016 and shaking people and going, "He will not divide us. He will not divide us," while being so divisionary, it was just like, dude, he's saying it all. Like, and I remember feeling that at the time. I was like, my God.
He must know.
David, I could have sworn that you were the one that said that you also had a theory that this were like his art school friends that put him up to this, and they were like pranking him, like a humiliation ritual. Like, look at this guy trying so desperately to break into the high art world.
Think what he did. Because he got, like, remember, like, they used to have a flag, right? And it turned it into a capture the flag game. And people were tracking the stars. And this is when people were interested in Pepe and Kek and Egyptian magic and the stars of the croaking frogs.
That was back in the good old days, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was all, people were united together all over 4chan in tracking the stars in order to find out where the flag was. And if he didn't do that on purpose, then God did that through him,
Yeah, but like Russell Crowe does that all the time now. He'll just be like, he'll have a tweet and he'll be like, "Where am I?" And he'll have some little clue. And like, but the thing is that nobody on Twitter or elsewhere is interested enough to know where he is. Whereas when that happened with Shia LaBeouf or whatever, like, people were like, where is he? Let's figure it out. Let's all get
honestly,
together.
that's kind of also where Tom Hanks got his hate from, going back to the Isaac Cappy thing. And this came, I can't remember what show it was on. I was on the White Rabbit podcast the other day. Shout out to Brad. And that when we were talking about this topic, I mentioned that, like, I get the hate for all these different celebrities and politicians, like, especially if you're coming up in the Epstein logs, and like, but what is it specifically about Tom Hanks? Because there's only two things. One is that the Wilson ball in the movie that he was cast in looks like the face where, okay, all right, let's say that's one of them. And the other one is that Isaac Cappy sang a song about him. But outside of the end, that he was posting like gloves on the road. And that was like, where am I? Right? Like, here's a random glove on a road. Who do you think this is? Where do you think I am? And those two things are damning enough to be like, he had to move the grease in order to evade the,
you know what?
Despite
the Eye of Providence tattooed on his son's chest, when his son is describing his father's relationship to Instagram, I still cannot. I have a hard time not believing his son, where he's just like, dude, my dad is just weird. He thought when he's using social media, he's like, how do I use this in a way that's like different or interesting? And he's like, oh, I'll just take these random pictures of when it looks like somebody's missing a glove, like,
I mean, it's just also so striking because we didn't hear about Chet. We heard about Colin.
Wait, does Chet not have? Oh no, this is another one.
No, this is Chet, and he changed his Masonic tattoo. He replaced the Illuminati eye with. Oh,
he went over it and he changed it to a cross.
That's gonna suck when he wants to go back to the eye again when he realizes it's all the same thing.
Well, I think he's doing this for a reason, for sure. I mean, the fact that he removed the eye after the QAnon period, like, he's trying to divorce himself from the Masonic accusations. But I don't know. I mean, I wanted to bring up another point, actually, which was the terrier, because we didn't finish that conversation. So the whole point of this whole thing goes back to Isaac Cappy. So what is the terrier? The terrier is the symbol for the fox hunt. What is the fox hunt? The fox hunt is where royals and elite chase a fox from dawn until the end of the day, usually, whenever the fox finally gives up living. Because they don't kill the fox. They just use this terrier to chase and bark at the thing and terrify the fox. And the fox runs. And then they chase it to another hole, and they use a horn. They do this again and again until the fox finally gives up on life. The fox runs all day, gets its adrenaline charged up until it's just filled with adrenaline. And then it's like, I have nothing left. I mean, what can I do? I've been running all day. And it just collapses. And it submits and surrenders into dying, right? This is what a fox hunt is. It's not the fox kill. It's the fox chase in order to just destroy this fox from the inside out with adrenaline, right?
Wasn't Fox and the Hound like one of the very first Disney movies ever made?
No. Fox and the Hound is 1981 or something like that.
Seriously? Right? I think it's older than that. Check it out. Look it up. I could be
Fox and the Hound is 1981. Exactly.
Really? Oh, I thought it was much before that. Okay.
Based on the novel from 67, right? So again, you have to think about it was just loosely based on it. It's completely different, but the idea of 1967, the civil rights movement, etc. But Fox and the Hound is very interesting because he doesn't understand, like, why is he born into the system that he's being raised into, and so he doesn't want. So they realize that they're deeper companionship. But okay, the terrier is the dog of the fox hunt. Who owns terriers? It's the monopoly.
Oh, George W. George W. has a terrier.
Let's start at the beginning. Is George W. Bush is actually near the end. We've got to look at the Queen of England. Obviously, the royal families always have terriers because the Scottish Rite, the Scottish Highlanders using terriers for fox hunting and
rat hunting too.
But this is an adrenochrome mission to get the fox so adrenaline filled that it's filled up to the brim with complete stress and anxiety and adrenaline from being chased all day. That's the idea. And a lot of people say they don't want the animal that's been in a stressful environment when they eat it. Clearly the elite are different. They want this thing or this person, whichever, to be completely filled with adrenaline and tortured throughout the day. And this goes, this is the Queen of England today, or before she passed away. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. You brought up George Bush. This is Eisenhower.
George Bush didn't really have a terrier. I just like to say that.
No. George Bush did have a terrier.
Really?
Yeah,
W. Bush. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was just a joke I made up years ago where I was like, what kind of dog did George Bush have? He had a terrier.
No, he has two.
Terrier.
I'm sure this is part of. I think
one for each tower.
Two terriers.
Yeah, he had Barney and Beasley. Barney and Beasley. Oh my
God! So
yeah, which are two references also. But go ahead.
God, I just want to point out that I've been thinking this since the beginning of the conversation when Anna brought up the dog in relationship. What was it? What were you saying? You were saying something like you were saying something, and I was visualizing the moon card in Crowley's and in the Rider-Waite deck, where you have these dogs are at either side in relationship to the two towers. So like, and the moon as it relates to the sun. That's why it's interesting. Like if you could do an overlay with the sun and moon card from Crowley's deck, it's insane. Like if you put one at 50% transparency on top of the other, they do something totally nuts because it puts Cancer at the bottom of it just like it appears in the sun card where you have the astrological wheel with Cancer at the bottom. In the moon card, you have Cancer at the bottom as that crustacean in the Rider-Waite deck that's like coming out of the water, and you have a wolf on one side and you have a dog on the other, right? And they're related to Anubis, guardian to the underworld. Am I correct? So like, but the relationship of the sun and the moon. Why? Because Fox is in English. If you spell out Fox, F is the 6th letter of the alphabet, O is the 15th, 5 plus 1 is 6, and X is 24, 4 plus 2 is 6. And those are the only times in basic reduction that 6 appears with the alphabet, and they're all in order even. So like if you watch the movie Antichrist, I think that's what's going on with that fox who says chaos reigns, right? When he comes across that fox.
This is George Bush's dog, by the way.
But it's the moon and the sun. So like it's literally like, and what's crazy is like if you look at like dog races, right? Where they have like the thing in the middle that moves, it's like imitating a fox or whatever. Every so often a dog will actually catch the electronic little fuzzy thing that's keeping them running as fast. You know what I'm talking about? Like, but it's mechanical. It's tricking them. It's like it's kind of, there's something weirdly clephotic about that, where it's not even a real fox. It's
Fox News gets people's adrenaline up all day.
Yeah, that's right. And like Firefox has this name because of the 666 thing. You can clearly see in the Firefox symbol where the fox is enveloping the Earth, dude. That's totally because of 666. Firefox. Come on.
The original book too of Fox and the Hound.
Vicente Fox, president of Mexico, was George Bush's cousin.
The original book was more about how people were moving in and making suburbs, and the foxes didn't have anywhere to go. Like that was the original version of the book, and Disney turned it into something a little bit more like woodsy, where like the fox was trying to get to a nice suburb as opposed to being able to live out in the wild. So they kind of like inverted that version of it.
Which one are you talking about? Which book?
Fox and the Hound, the original, whatever it was based on. And the guy that had done the original research for it, I believe, he ended up getting like a falcon or something in order to train, because he was like, I want to become one with nature and kind of like understand how to approach all this. And he just couldn't resist giving the falcon treats, or it was a hawk or a falcon. He couldn't resist giving it treats. And I guess what you're supposed to do though is you're supposed to starve them so that they will do these tricks so that you become their only food source. But once this, like, again, he was like a city slicker. Once he starts trying to train this bird, he can't resist giving it treats constantly. So when he finally decided to go and like let it fly, it didn't realize it had to go back to this guy to get food because it had never been trained properly. So on its very first flight, it just flew off into the distance and never came back. And he gave up and he went back to the city.
Firefox is also a cool Clint Eastwood movie about thought-controlled Russian jet fighters.
Of course it is.
It's pretty good. And Zorro, obviously. Zorro is an elite pretending double agent for the nobles who's working to liberate the state against his empire, right?
So Disney just apparently dropped its proposed...
Oh, dude, that's Disney's biggest MO. My favorite example is Jungle Book. He actually went around to the writers and animation departments and was like, has anyone read the original Kipling Jungle Book? And a bunch of people were like, no, I haven't, but I'm going to. And he's like, I don't want you to read it. I don't want you to understand what the original was based on. I want you to do the Disney version of this.
Right.
And Zorro was the first Disney live action show, I believe.
I was going to say Robin Hood. There was a proposed Robin Hood live action, which I really think is just going to be another CGI movie that they call live action because it's not traditional animation. I don't really know, but
Disney's famous live action movie was the Robin Hood in 1950.
He's a fox, and I have to wonder if like what the real rationale was for them dropping it, because ideologically, does Robin Hood actually genuinely connect with the current ideology? Like at the time when the original Robin Hood came out, as far as society was concerned, everyone could pretty much get on board with the particulars, but now it might be getting tricky. I don't really know.
Robin Hood's Antifa.
Because Robin Hood's Antifa. He's the fox. That's weird. I don't know.
Robin Hood and His Merry Men, 1952. Walt Disney's Robin Hood. This movie was very famous, and I think in a lot of ways Star Wars is kind of influenced by this movie. I would recommend.
Like Robin Hood is burning down an AutoZone during a George Floyd riot. That is something that I see Robin Hood doing.
Right, obviously. Yeah, no, it's like, I don't
he's robbing the hood. That's the whole thing.
Well, his wealthy redistribution is because the true king is on a crusade, right? And so because the king's on a crusade, his brother James is in charge, right?
All right. Question for Anna. I'm sorry. Do you see this, Anna? What your thoughts on? Oh shit, I lost it. Was the question for Anna right above there?
What are your thoughts on them trying to initiate Armageddon and Christ's second coming? Tell us, because I don't want to close my eyes. Don't want to fall asleep. Yeah.
I have no idea other than, like I said, no, don't do that to me.
That's so much more fun. All right,
no,
fine.
God.
You're no fun.
You just ignore it, pretend like
it's
close your eyes.
Quite know. I was just asking everybody what's going on in the world because I've been so distracted and busy. But I did say I thought it was interesting because I've been singing that sappy Aerosmith song about "Don't Want to Miss a Thing," which was from the movie Armageddon. So I feel like somehow it's all cosmically.
That whole album dubs twice over to "Eyes Wide Shut." No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it's that song in that party scene, probably. Don't want to close my eyes.
It kind of makes you want to rewatch Armageddon though, because
I've been meaning to.
Too. And like Bruce Willis is attached to a lot of death themes in movies, like Die Hard and The Sixth Sense.
I was rather young when that movie, not that young, but I was like, maybe not quite a teenager when that movie came out. And I think I saw it like 100 times on videotape over and over again. I saw that movie way too many times, which I'm embarrassed to admit. But it's a good movie. I would recommend watching it.
Mythoclass says just sync that one song to the whole movie. Laugh my ass off. So that was I had a friend Nicole. You might know her, Andreas. She, old Santa Cruz head, who was like, you gotta watch Back to the Future with just the song from the Breakfast Club. What's the
Don't you forget about me.
And you just play on the loop through the whole movie, and it's just incredible. Like, it's like MK Ultra with lid locks.
That's the thing that bothers me. So many people, like, they'll talk about, like, did you know that, like, I heard someone talking the other day about Guantanamo Bay, and they're like, you know what they did to those people? Like, yeah, because, like, I do that to myself. Like, I listen to that playlist all the time. I listened to the Guantanamo Bay playlist before I knew it was the Guantanamo Bay playlist.
Isn't that the Many Stare Goats, where it's like they open the door and the guy's just being forced to watch Barney over and over again, and it's just like the "I Love You" song or whatever, and it's just like, oh, that's the dark side, you know.
Which is also what happens in the second Addams Family movie, by the way.
Really?
The Addams Family movie is great because it talks about racism. It's like, look, this Slavic family or Mediterranean family are not as scary as these Anglo wasps. You know, this white girl, this blonde girl, she marries this guy. She burned down her house. She murdered her family. She seems like the nice, presentable one because you don't realize that it's, you know, never judge a book by their.
But on top of that, when they go to the camp, it's the exact same scenario playing out. It's like this blonde-headed wasp that's like a monster. But then when they try and speak out, their punishment is they get locked into a small little shack in the middle of the woods, and they play Barney on repeat until they go crazy from it.
Yeah, except like if you grew up that way, like I'm Bane, you know, like I was bred in this, I was born in this.
Like your parents didn't lock you in a room with a Disney movie on, and like that's the babysitter.
Worse, they locked me in a library of videotapes, right? So like and then they were working all the time. So
that was I was largely raised by the VCR myself.
And Teddy Ruxpin. See, like when Freud talks about the mother. For me, it's not my mother. It's a Teddy Ruxpin. That explains my whole thing with technology, I'm pretty sure.
Did you have the weird orange centipede friend of his too?
Of course, yeah. I forget his name.
Caterpillar or whatever he is.
He's like a caterpillar thing. What's his name?
It was like Grundle or something. Yeah, it was something unfortunate in modern terms, I believe.
Oh, is that bad? I don't know. Grundle. Wait, no. Grundle is the
Grundo. Is it Grundo? Okay. Grundo, all right, he's off the hook.
Is the pink friend, isn't he? Isn't Grundo Grundo's the land where Teddy Ruxpin takes place. Teddy Ruxpin.
There he is, right there to the side.
Totally. Yeah. Characters. Here we go. Grubby. His name is Grubby. That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Grubby. And it's a really, you know, it's an interesting show for sure. And it has the voice of Hackers guy, Indian. What's his name again? No, not Hackers from India. Hackers 1995.
You mean from Short Circuit?
Yeah, also from Short Circuit. Sorry,
because he's not actually Indian.
Right, exactly. Which, you know, I mean, his whole whiteface thing. Fisher Stevens. That's
there.
Right.
You go.
I mean, but how many of you knew that as a kid?
You put Indian in. You put Indian in the search. You were never going to find him
because he played an Indian character. But realistically, it's the other way around. It's an Indian guy who's playing whiteface.
He wasn't a hacker, though.
Dude, that's Victor Victoria, dude. You can't even tell. You're like, wait,
he was a hacker.
Yeah,
he was a hacker. That's the point.
Okay,
that's
I didn't know that. I know that
for being not a great hacker. The CIA bought him up, or NSA grabbed him for wire fraud at some point, and now he works for them, finding younger, cooler hackers. The Hackers movie is way more. I mean, everyone talks about how they love it, but act like that movie is not accurate. And I realize they don't understand technology, because that movie is so, and not just technology, but wire fraud and the agency and international conspiracies. The movie Hackers is probably the most startlingly accurate movie. And I think that's why they keep saying that movie doesn't make any sense, because it's probably literally what actually happened. It's got to be a record.
Dude, it has such a good soundtrack in its day. Incredible. Like there's like towards the beginning of the movie when he's like on the airplane, seeing the sunrise or something, and they're playing this electronic song, and like that song was so good. It was like up there with Teardrop at the time, you know, for Massive Attack. It's just like, what is going on with this music, man?
There's also a scene in that movie that everyone always laughed about. They're like, I love this. I love that we're still watching this skiing going on. That movie has got this scene where they're like, I'm gonna, you know, this is like the, you know, Risk architecture is gonna change the world. And everyone laughed about it because they're like, what? Like the calculators? Like obviously solar powered calculators aren't going to change the world. But today, you know, Risk 5 is the, you know, the free and open source instructional set architecture built to reduce set computing, which is totally changing the world. ARM, all your Snapdragon phones, everything is based on RISC. Everything in that movie that people thought they didn't understand when it came out, that's because it was so ahead of the time. It knew everything that was going to happen.
Yeah. That's my cousin says. My cousin in Sweden swears by hackers. He was like, hackers was like got him going in this direction. Like he knew all those guys who founded Kick-Ass Torrents and Pirate Bay and all that, and he jumped off the bandwagon as soon as they started doing advertising, because he recognized, my cousin recognized early on that it's like, if you guys want to make this legal argument that you're trying to make, as soon as you advertise, you're no longer in a position to because then people can say something against you. Oh, look, you're making money. He was like, the only way this ever would have worked is if they just literally like, we have other jobs, we have other ways to make money. This is something separate that we do. And so he called them out like respectfully at the as soon as that started to happen. He was like, you guys are going to screw yourselves over here, because in Sweden specifically, like the laws and the way that they were navigating it was like, we can only do this if we do it in this way. And they were just like, no, we got to make money off of this. What are we doing? And then he left. He showed me a documentary one time of about, I think it was about Pirate Bay, or maybe it was Kick-Ass Torrents. I think it was Pirate, but he's like, all these guys, he's like, oh yeah, he told me stories about everyone as they're going. He's like, yeah, they messed up, and so he's now all good. Well, a lot of those people got kind of screwed,
Yeah.
There's a picture of Julian Assange. What is his name? Julian
Assange.
Yeah, he looks exactly like the title character in Hacker, or not the title, whatever the main character in
Hacker. Oh, Sick Boy. Is that Sick Boy from Trainspotting? Same guy?
Yeah, Sick Boy from Trainspotting, yeah. But his Crash Override or whatever, Dade Murphy, I think is his name, is the character. You think that he looks like Julian Assange?
Yeah, there's a picture of Julian Assange where he has the same like moto jacket on and the blonde hair. Like they very much resemble each other.
I'm sure that Julian Assange loved the movie Hackers as well.
There's no question. Did Julian Assange like Hackers, the movie? Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet. He was hip to that. Yeah.
Okay, wait. So Charles Rocket. So you guys remember who Charles Rocket is? Remember this face. So this is the actor who was in Dumb and Dumber, and he's in tons of movies. He's in UHF as the son of the corporation that wants to buy the UHF station, and he was also the guy selected for Weekend Update originally to replace Norm Macdonald instead of, get this, Jim Carrey, right? Jim Carrey was turned down for the role after, and you would have remembered this, right? Like, why don't you remember that he was on Weekend Update? Well, because Tina Fey took over right after he was murdered. After he was murdered and found dead in a field with his throat slit in Connecticut, right? Which is interesting because that's a line. That one time you get murdered in a field one time. But Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey improvised the line. They catch him half a mile down the road and slit his throat.
Right.
Jim Carrey the accusation has been made by conspiracy theorists that Jim Carrey is an active Hollywood serial killer who started when Jim auditioned for Saturday Night Live after he was dropped in favor of Charles Rocket. Who's Charles Rocket? The villain in Dumb and Dumber. Rocket was found dead in a field near his home with his throat cut. His death was ruled as a suicide. Right? So how do you pretend that this wasp committed suicide? Like, I mean, when he was on the height of his career doing super well, considered by so many people to be a kind and virtuous and generous man.
So it's the clues. It's the clues. So there's that joke about the 9/11 thing. Who was the comedian who said, oh, there's one more piece to this 9/11 thing. We have to include the clues. And so like for me, I think that's always kind of like the issue when you're looking at subliminals in Hollywood, especially if you're looking at, like, this is an example. You're arguing that was ad-libbed. Maybe it was. I don't really know. But what would the motivation be? Suppose you're going to entertain that there's insider knowledge and that they're communicating this thing. Would it really be to, I mean, I know that there's always the Michael Sarian argument or whatever. Not that he's the only one who said it, that you need to be able to, it's part of it is being able to show what it is that you're up to, so that it's in people's face and psychologically that does something.
Revelation of the method and karmic debt.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, it would make more sense that if you are entertaining that there's this insider knowledge, that he's actually like trying to communicate something that he knows that he can't say outright, of somebody did this thing. And isn't it ironic then that if you're entertaining that is what's going on, that he's like trying to blow a whistle on some level that he's capable of, and then people are like, oh, you did it, it's all about you. So it's like it gets that weird thing where it's like if somebody's trying to out somebody else, and if the powers that be would work towards that, right? If you want to cover your own tracks, you say that the person who was trying to do a subliminal whistleblowing, because that's what they were able to do without, you know, getting themselves killed, that they're the ones who actually are the killer. You know, like it could get weird like that. I don't really know. You know,
I mean, but this is before I think that, you know, he's playing. I mean, it seems pretty strange that before he dies this way, that in the movie he's in with Jim Carrey, that this happens.
Jim Carrey was told what was going to happen, or he had access to that, and then he's like,
I'm gonna like you. Maybe.
Why would he out himself in the thing? Just
to be clear,
he can't control himself. I don't think he can control himself.
Just to be clear, because I've seen this movie a million times. The exact scene we're talking about is when he sticks some guy in the back with a bill, and then they're driving away, and they're like, haha, I saw it in a movie. And he's like, oh, what happened in the movie? And he's like, oh, he ends up with his throat slit, you know, down the road or something. But that guy that was chasing them is not the guy that died. The guy that died is the one that's the ultra villain of the movie, that like has the owl and he's got the eye patch, and he's the one that like orchestrated all this, but he's unrelated to the diner scene. So it's like I guess just because he said it in the movie that the guy was also in, then that's the connection.
Right.
There's also just a weird phenomenon where like life becomes art and art becomes life, and it's all like interconnected. Or like even with Andy Kaufman, like his name was Kaufman and he dies from lung cancer. Like there's just like this divine script that's being played out in the material world.
Or Jim Carrey thought that'd be hilarious, you know what I mean? Or I mean, Andy Kaufman thought that'd be hilarious to die of coughing. I don't know. I mean, sometimes you produce your own prophecy. Another one though is Jonathan Brandis, right? Jonathan Brandis. Who was great. You know, he was a super famous actor, and he was, you know, pretty famous for a while. Yeah, he's in Ladybugs. He's in Neverending Story 2 and 3. You know, he's from also Danbury, Connecticut, right? And so interesting, another boy in Connecticut who dies of a suicide, right?
Is Sequest totally a Scientology play? Is that what the deal with Sequest was?
I think so. I mean, the logo, right?
Sea Org. Yeah, it's even got the triangle. I feel like Sequest was based on Scientology.
That's also the Q too. I've seen.
We got to go deep dive on Sequest sometime. It's actually a fascinating show, and you'll see that he's like the uninitiated being initiated right into the Sequest.
Is this that Jaws?
Sequest is the real Star Trek, right? Because Star Trek, they're like, you know, someday there'll be this like group that, you know, no, that exists right now. It's the Navy. It's already there. Sequest exists. You know,
is that who I thought it was? Is that what's his name in the center there? That's all that jazz and Jaws, right?
Yeah.
What's his freaking name? I can't think right now.
Roy Schneider.
Yeah, there you go.
Roy Scheider, right?
Crazy that he did Sequest after being such a
2001: A Space Odyssey. He plays Dr. Haywood Floyd.
No.
And he's in 2010, the year we make contact.
He's in 2010.
And 2001. He's in both.
Haywood Floyd. That was Haywood Floyd, I guess, was Rob. Oh, wow. He's just a young. No, that doesn't. Is that true? I'm looking at Wikipedia saying that. Why do I feel like Rob Schneider? I don't feel like he was in. Is that him? Is that really him?
Yeah.
No. That's 2010.
This is 2010?
That's 2010. In 2001, that's supposed to be. I don't believe it. Is Wikipedia wrong, or am I tripping? How do I?
It's plausible. I mean.
No, does it really? Is that true? I mean, I feel like I'm an expert on 2001 for the most part. So how did I not know that? No, I don't believe it. I'm looking it up on my phone while I've got the computer in front of me.
2001: A Space Odyssey. Roy. Let's see, actors.
Yeah, they're right there. Let's look. Just scroll past it.
Okay, no, William Sylvester, I guess then. They must have it
Yeah.
wrong.
Why did it say that?
I don't know.
I'm like that. I was like, I've never heard that in my life, and it sure as shit doesn't look like him. So what the hell is going on?
I don't know. That's pretty interesting that they would
Is
screw that
another
up.
example of Wikipedia having disinfo?
It happens. That's true.
Wait. This is crazy. Okay. All that it really does say that. Why do that? But no, I'm tripping out on what we're doing where like people like standing for other people, like imitating other people.
Wait. We're reading it wrong. Dr. Floyd in the 2001 A Space Odyssey sequel.
Okay. It's already saying that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
The writing's pretty small on my screen here. I'm trying to, okay.
Yeah. So, but point is kind of interesting that he would be, in this movie. That's pretty interesting that he would, in Jaws, and then he's in Sequest. That seems like there's something to that.
By the way, all that jazz is one of the greatest movies ever made, and a lot of people don't always realize it because it's so. If you look at it, it's like so easy to just think that this is another like Sweet Chariot or some.
Sweet Charity.
Sweet Charity. Excuse me, Sweet Charity. I was thinking Swing Low, but no, it's like it's the most narcissistic movie ever made, and paradoxically becomes like one of the least because of what he's reconciling, like where death is this blonde woman that's like walking him through his life and all of this shit. Like it's so meta. It's like so meta. It's fucking crazy. I don't know. Most people haven't seen all that jazz that I talked to, and I think it's because like Philip K. Dick was going off about all that jazz, which is why Bill saw it. I asked Bill, have you seen all that jazz? He's like, only because Philip K. Dick was like, you got to watch this. So I was like, it's kind of nuts, dude. Yeah.
But so let's see. We were talking about Jonathan Brandis a second ago, right? So that was the other one. So there's the girlfriend, Catherine White, right? And so she ended up with some venereal disease and given pills to commit suicide. And then there's the what's the other one?
It sounds like Bill and Melinda Gates a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Right. Which is probably related to the same thing that he was somehow.
I don't necessarily believe it. And I've talked about this before. I have reasons why I think that this might be disinfo put out by Scientology about her death and even the venereal disease stuff, or that they picked something they went through. They're trying to find any dirt that they could on Jim Carrey as soon as he was in the position to come out and tell people about what Scientology had done to is his girlfriend or his wife? I can't remember. But there's all these articles that came out as soon as she died, and they've all been scrubbed. I can't find any of them related to the process that Scientology had her going through, where they would have her do these really extreme cleanses involving fasting and sauna over and over and over and over again, and her body just gave out. And so they put it that it was a suicide when really it looks like Scientology basically killed her by pushing her too far. So I believe I lean towards the first explanation of her death than what came later, because it makes sense. Why is it all scrubbed? Like it looks like they got the best goddamn lawyers or something. Like it's weird.
Well, the other one was that Chris Benoit, right? Didn't kill his family. Maybe he was killed and his family were killed.
Right. His wife at the time was Jenny McCarthy. Someone's saying in the comments, and it's true, because him and Jenny McCarthy went on freaking Larry King and went off about vaccination when at the time that was like becoming like the liberal position was to be critical of vaccination or concerned that we're vaccinating our kids too much, and they were so vocal about it. And then you look at everything that happened, all of a sudden this seems to happen every time. Is it a coincidence that when people come out and they're very vocal on something that has so many billions of dollars attached to it and all this perverse incentive, and all of a sudden they're being painted as these really bad guys with any dirt that you can possibly find on them? That's why I say, like, if you're entertaining, if you're talking about RFK Jr. or any of this stuff, you're like, just suppose, like, put these people aside, just be theoretical. Like, if somebody is actually a real threat to that system in that way, if they're looking at perverse incentives, the rotating door between corporations and regulatory agencies, and they're saying something about it, isn't it funny how every single time that happens, we get the media just blasting them as with any bit of anything that they can find about them to just be like, oh, this person's evil, or this person did this. Like, Jim Carrey is like one of the most liked fucking guys in the country. He's the highest paid actor, like after 1993 or 4 when he was in The Mask,
when he was
and
in
Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber all in 1 year.
It was the Cable Guy with Ben Stiller, which is why I was trying to bring up the next aspect of this is Ben Stiller's connection to all this, right? Because of course, you know, when we think about Ben Stiller and Zoolander and what's Zoolander all about, with David Duchovny releasing this conspiracy that models are being used to make the world, you know, uglier or make people want to be homeless before some sort of a housing collapse, right? And you know, his recent obsession with the president showing, you know, hey, White House, please remove your Tropic Thunder clip. We never gave you permission, have no interest in being part of your propaganda machine. In other words, they're not paying him anymore. You know, USAID is not paying him, like, so he's, you know, not really happy with this arrangement, right? But yeah, sorry, you had thoughts on Ben Stiller too. It sounded like you were bouncing there.
So that post, you know, you had Maze immediately put up a video of Ben Stiller in Ukraine with what's his name, the other actor, Sean Penn, giving Zelensky his Oscar. So when he says war isn't a movie, and then you look at the propaganda that Ben Stiller was directly a part of, visiting Zelensky and putting the whole thing like this, like, dude, you've treated war like a movie. In fact, you made like a parody.
And not to mention that Zelensky is the Jim Carrey, Ben Stiller of Ukraine, right?
Right.
And he played Winnie the Pooh. Oh my god!
And he played Paddington Bear.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Paddington Bear. Sorry, different bear. I was racist against bears. My bad.
Okay, yeah. Talk to Sean Fellow about it. But
oh my god.
Yeah. So anyway,
which also Barney is a bear strong. Barney from Barney the Scottish Terrier. I don't know if we're going to say.
Is Paddington war related? I assume
Paddington's
not.
Totally about colonialism in Peru, right? Because he's from deepest, darkest Peru, and there's this whole racist thing going on with the Peruvians and the Anglophiles and the Spanish colonies, and how the British hated the Spanish because of the Muslims, and so they looked at like Peru as maybe like an indigenous culture. But it's like the similar to the Scheider movie Medicine Man, right? Medicine Man has, you know, this is basically Paddington Bear and Medicine Man are very closely related. Sean Connery and Medicine Man, you know, or is it Rain Man? Yeah. Medicine Man?
I'm looking for a cure for cancer and I lost it in the 19th century or whatever. Yeah.
That's basically Paddington Bear too. Like, you know, that's a big part of that entire story, really. But okay, so Ben Stiller's connection to Jim Carrey is that Ben Stiller initiated him into getting all that money. Before Ben Stiller, he was getting paid, you know, somewhat well, but it was Cable Guy where he got his first $20 or $30 million.
It's because he had 3 blockbuster films in 1 year, and then after that, he was so sought after. Same thing happened with Macaulay Culkin. In fact, Cable Guy is kind of the equivalent of what happened with The Good Son, where they like had this extremely high-paid actor put into a role, but he was being a different way, and then people didn't really take to it. So like in both cases, it was like, you know, the audience was like, this isn't the the Jim Carrey we want to see. This isn't the Macaulay Culkin we want to see. You know, like there was kind of a weird, yeah.
I don't know. And also Canterbury, Connecticut is pretty interesting. I forget how close that is to Sandy Hook, but you know what I mean. Like, let's see here. It's a bit. No, this is. I think Sandy Hook's down there somewhere, or is it down? No, yeah, it's over here. I think it's over here. Still, point is, you know, Connecticut, I find that interesting. The whole idea that these suicides are happening in Connecticut, where any witness can be paid any amount of money to say anything you want to do.
Somebody says I thought Macaulay Culkin did great in The Good Son. The Good Son syncs with Nick Cave's album The Good Son, which is kind of incredible. But Macaulay Culkin, yeah, it's just this thing where everyone's attached to an actor being a certain way. They wanted that cute kid that they saw in Home Alone. And instead they got this like cigarette smoking, dog murdering, like kill your mother character. And then that became him. People could never look at him the same way. And you had this cute child actor who now people felt like he was that character that they saw in The Good Son, because people tend to relate to actors like they are these characters that they play, which, excuse me, is kind of retarded. But people just have that tendency. They will literally scapegoat people or treat people, I shouldn't say scapegoat because it can be positive too, and they kind of amount to the same. When you're putting somebody on a pedestal or you're tearing them down just based on the roles that you saw them in, you're like, I don't like that person because, you know, whatever they did to this dog, you know, it's like, dude, they didn't do that, dude. That was a movie, bro.
Well, dude, when it comes with the Good Son, Will and I did a really like a super deep dive. It started out on the movie Clifford, but what we found out is that Clifford, it's the same movie, and it's all based on this older movie called The Bad Seed from 1956. Yep. And then after Bad Seed, you had a Twilight Zone episode, which was the exact same thing called It's a Good Life, which is probably like one of the best Twilight Zones. Where like,
is that the one that they did?
The kid, like everyone's like, it sure is good you did that, and it's like he will like think you off into the distance or something,
right?
And then they remade that scene in the Twilight Zone movie, where now it becomes the kid that controls the TV, and no one's allowed to like leave his perpetual birthday party or whatever.
Cheeseburgers again, yay!
And then that's where this is where it's all from Bad Seed, and then you get Problem Child, and then there was also. Even better than I think The Good Son, there was a movie called Mikey in 1992, which was like a better version where he's literally he walks in on like his mom like drops a toaster in the bathtub or something, and then like he jumps around and he actually becomes like a terrible little maniac. And then you got Good Son, which is the Good Son is more of the danger is a bad kid can influence your good kid. Like the Good Son is actually the danger, right? It's that that North ends up becoming like possibly corrupted by Macaulay Culkin.
Wow.
What's that movie? What's the Irish one that's like that? Like Pig or The Butcher Boy or something like that? Butcher Boy, is that right?
So somebody mentioned Party Monster.
There was another really good one called Joshua too. If you've never seen Joshua, 2007. This is the one where it gets about like dinosaurs and stuff. It's weird. Like there was like it's a really deep episode.
Clifford with the dinosaurs,
right.
And then you're
we were finding threads.
If you wanna see a crazy one, it's even the full movie is available on YouTube for free. I don't think it's very popular. Butcher Boy, and it's about a Clifford like boy. In fact, in a lot of ways it's similar because he's Irish, so he's even got red hair. It's all about this like menacing boy who's just totally, you know, and his priest is like, dude, you got to stop being like this all the time. Eventually,
stop being such a butcher boy. I'm a butcher boy.
And because his family are butchers, you know, guns are legal. He can get a gun, so he gets a butcher's gun. And I don't even want to tell you everything about this movie, except that he's schizophrenic and talks.
It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre a little bit.
You know, more than Clifford is. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely, you need to see it. I can't even, you know.
Well, here's an interesting spin to this, right? So between 1950s, which was the original Bad Seed, and like 1990s, early 2000s, which is Clifford, but now in 2020s, the only version of that we have of Bad Seed and Good Son and Clifford and all these movies is like, let's talk about Kevin. It's all like school shooters now. Like that's where it dovetails.
Which even if you look at the original poster art for We Need to Talk About Kevin, it's made to look like Rosemary's Baby covering away, but you're looking at the devil in the womb. So he's got like, it's like a fetus, but he's got little horns. Like you're seeing like a green ultrasound, so it carries over that Rosemary's Baby symbolism. But yeah, there's like the whole question of like nature versus nurture is really what we're talking about through all of it. And the idea of the Bad Seed is that no, it's just, this is who this is. It doesn't matter. You could have, in other words, you can have everybody raising the child right, but it's still going to be messed up because people want to blame parents or something. Nowadays it'd be like blame TV or blame whatever. And it's like, no, this is just a bad kid so the concept of We Need to Talk About Kevin is that he's born bad. And there's nothing the mother can do to stop this bad kid.
There were all these warning signs, but there was not. Yeah, that like it was always going to happen that way. And then there's one other movie to just put on the end of this list, which is worthy. It's called Mother of Monsters or Mothers of Monsters, MOM. And it kind of like takes this concept and it flips it on its head a little bit. And it's that, what if you're convinced that you have a Kevin or you know, it's funny. Let's talk about Kevin, and then like Kevin Arnold in Home Alone, who's also sort of like the. But anyways, like what happens if you start seeing all the signs and you're like, my kid is gonna do like some horrific thing, but the Mother of Monsters, she ends up taking it to such an extreme, and then finds out that her kid wasn't really going to do any of this, that he felt like his privacy was invaded. So he starts like staging, like, I'm going to freak my mom out, but she like takes it like way too far. And I don't know, it's crazy.
What's it called where you like dig dong ditch, but you put a bag of shit in the paper bag and you light it on fire so they stomp out the paper bag? What's that called? What's that called?
Shit.
Called lighting a bag of dog shit on fire and running away.
Okay. What's it called where you like murder an innocent woman and cover her walls in pig's blood and then light a bag of shit on the floor and light the house on fire? What's that?
We
called?
also accept the Podesta.
Okay, because that's kind of like if you think about it, murdering someone and shitting on their floor and lighting their house on fire and covering it in pig blood is kind of the ultimate prank, you know. So it's like the merry prankster kind of character.
Do that like every Halloween, right? That's
I mean, some people do, right? And so if you remember this particular actor from The Crying Game, he's the butcher boy when he's grown up, and he still has a relationship with the Mother Mary. Like he's known her all of his life, and they're still pretty good friends. So there's kind of that Clifford-like redemption at the end for the boy who, you know, has been like pathologically insane, which I think is missing from any of the other stories besides Clifford. So this is why I think this is literally the more true Clifford. This is like Clifford.
Why is it like Clifford stars? What's his name? What's the?
Martin Short's daughter just committed suicide, right? Or was killed, whatever. Was suicided. Excuse me.
Yeah. So it's weird. He plays a short person. He's Martin Short, but Grodin, Charles Grodin, is that his name? The
dad. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's not really the dad. He's his uncle or something. What is it? He's his nephew.
The uncle. Sorry, yeah.
But whatever the case, he was in the movie Clifford. Or no, not Clifford. Beethoven, the giant dog movie, stars Grodin, who's in Clifford, not a giant dog movie. I don't know, but a giant T-Rex movie, and the T-Rex is somehow related to the dog. They call it Dog Rex. I don't know.
It could be a thing.
There's something to it.
We didn't talk about Iran at all. I just thought it'd be like worth at some point mentioning that it's kind of an interesting, you know, war that we have going on here. I mean, I don't know what even we can say about it, except that it's funny how they always talk about, you know, Khomeini, who has probably been dead or played by David Letterman for the last 20 years. You know, I don't think that's this. I mean, how many times has Khomeini already been replaced? The Ayatollah has been replaced probably 20 or maybe at least 3 or 4 times, like Putin, you know.
That's a Simpsons bit in the attic when he's like finds an old picture of the Ayatollah and he's like, it doesn't matter because they're all the same Ayatollah.
Yeah, except for now, because now we have, you know, Shiatollah, like we were saying earlier, like like al the new Ayatollah. But like what I think the deal is, Trump finally. Here's my conspiracy theory: is that Israel needed a weak Iran that it could use, and a religious fanatical government that can control Iran is the easiest way to do that. So they've kept the Ayatollah in charge as long as possible in order to foster up this idea of a proxy war or a cold war with Iran, so they can constantly control Iran. Meanwhile, Iran has been desperately trying to have a democracy. And that's why I brought up the actual president, like, because they talk about the election to say Iran hasn't had an election, they don't have a democracy. They voted for this guy, and as soon as he was elected in June 2024, that's when we started talking about Iran super hard, that we're going to have a war with Iran, and that there's no democracy. So here's a reformist who's not super into the hyper religious Sharia, and he's born in West Azerbaijan, which is, Azerbaijan is basically Russian Arabia. So he's a BRICS Soviet maybe, or Putinian kind of, at least let's say a Dugin multipolar leader. And now when we talk about America helping Israel the entire time, my conspiracy is that this war was inevitable. Everyone's saying Trump, always talked about how he wanted to stop the war, stop Obama from having the war, and now he's in the war. Well, I think the war was inevitable. But at this point, we played whack-a-mole or whack-a-tola mole enough times, whack-ayatollah mole, that there's no more Ayatollah coming. And so Israel can't use Ayatollah as an excuse in the future of this proxy war. So there's going to be a new democracy of some kind that's established whether or not it's a real democracy or just a fascist puppet state of the United States instead of Israel. I think this is a major play against Israel by the United States. I think that's really what's going on with the removing of the Ayatollah, is that Trump is afraid of Israel gaining too strong of a foothold in Israel. And when we talk about, oh, it's so obvious that America will win any war with, Iran, we forget like Iran's about the size of Western Europe. It's about the size of, France, Russia, French, Germany, and Austria, and, a couple other countries combined. It has incredible amounts of resources already there. It's in an incredibly Tehran's really isolated by these mountain ranges, and there's not an easy way to attack them. And they have all these tunnels in the caves. So if we were to actually go in there on the ground, they would be in the caves like Afghanistan. Afghanistan was the lesson the Russians learned. America might learn a similar lesson.
Iran just made mistake after mistake after mistake leading up to this. And they were already isolating themselves so much on the global stage because, for one thing, like what they want to exist there is so antithetical to what even the places surrounding them would adopt. Like, it's so
what do you mean exactly? What are you saying?
So hardcore, the customs and the punishment.
You mean like so this is what I mean. Like, America has this, and Israel too has this narrative that Iran is like Sharia Al-Qaeda, which
well,
it's not.
Well, it kind of is though, because of Operation Ajax, which I think was like either 72 or 74. And that's where
the people aren't about that. This is the status quo, which is the small Ayatollah.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, so this is the thing. I have to
pretty secular, actually.
Can I just share something for a second? I went to, this was like maybe 4 years ago or something. My buddy Wes took me to somebody's birthday party. It was a little kid's birthday party that he was friends with their parents, and like everybody there was Iranian. And I like had a night of just like hours of talking to this family about politics, and they were so interesting. I learned so much, and one of the things that they went off about was how they're not just lack of freedom, but the way that, like, if you don't, it's like any cult, like if you don't want to join the cult and you want to live there, that's possible. They don't like, it's not like it's mandatory for you to become Muslim to live in Iran, but if you are Muslim, even if you've converted, it's completely illegal not just to remove yourself from Islam, like to excommunicate yourself, like that's punishable, but even if you insult the thing after you're a part of the thing, like it's just crazy. And so and it's not just that, it's all the treatment of women and all this stuff. So I have these people that are like, we have family living there, and these are the conditions they're living under. And so like this was like years ago, and so I've carried this with me, like, because I was kind of impacted by this conversation of like, they're like, something needs to give here because it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and they're a threat to the region, they're a threat to America ultimately with what they say, if you take them at their word. So if they say death to America over and over again, you're like, no, they don't really mean that. It's like, no, they mean that. Like, so,
I don't think that 80 or 90% of the Iranian people feel that way, but there's probably 1 to 3% of the population that's controlling Iran that feels that way. And you have to remember that a lot of Iranians are outside of Iran, so all over the world. And America might spend $1 million on a nuke or something like that, but why would you waste your money when you can?
How are you supposed to know? Like, how can you take a poll with people that are afraid that if they say the wrong thing,
I think that kind of proves my point that most people don't feel that way. They're going to be murdered if they say anything otherwise, right? You're saying? So realistically, most of these are college kids. A lot of them are socialists. Some of them are Parmesan anarchists. I mean, they're very intelligent, very astute, very high IQ, very educated people in Iran. And they always have been. And this is a minor nuisance the last 50 years of their control. Are you muted? Sorry, Pyramid.
Can I just put a third in the punch bowl just really quick? I'm assuming that these stats come from the CIA, but if you look at like global inbreeding levels, the Iran, which you would think is like progressive compared to everything, they actually have higher levels of inbred marriages. I think it's like high 40%.
Now do Williamsburg.
They also got
now do Israel. Now do Israel.
They've been marrying people up to as low as 9 years old, and that's like totally happening. Like, you guys,
I just don't want to do like a noble savage thing on Iran.
No, that's fair to say that they've got like, but it's a huge country with a lot of people. That's not the way it is in the cities, realistically. And I'm sure there are religious fanatics, but the thing is, every time I think to myself, we got to get rid of some of the, reactionary, violent, Sharia, whatever, those Sharia type Muslims or whatever. Then I see some freaking friend of mine or worse on Facebook or Twitter who's like a religious Christian, like an American Christian, and I'm like, oh my God, because the thing that's bad about Islam for people is the same thing that's bad about American evangelical Christianity that's bad for people. It's bad for your brain.
Well,
Like it
well,
does something.
hypocrisy. The difference is that if you're looking at the gospel, you can always make the argument that these people are being hypocritical Christians if they act in this way, because that's not what the doctrine of the thing that they're referencing is actually saying. Whereas when you get into the Quran, you can find passages that are like, dude, there's no way around this. And like, this is religious text.
You know
Unlike
what,
the
though?
Talmud, where it's just people having a debate. These are examples of like, this is scripture, and it'll just say the most outrageous shit that I don't know how you can defend it. So you can say the difference is that if you have somebody who's practicing well, who's Muslim, and you say, oh, well, the only way that they can do this is they ignore certain passages in their own text. Whereas if you're Christian, you don't make the same argument necessarily. You're like saying like, oh no, they're ignoring the passages. That's the opposite. This is people, you know what I'm saying? Like
that's a relevant point, I think. And this is why I think it makes sense to get rid of the Ayatollah in Iran. And then I think likely once you get rid of the 3% of the population that's interested in that, then what you have are college kids, which will go back to business as usual for Iran, which is thousands of years of being so open-minded. They brought in Islam. You know, they were so open-minded, they brought in closed-minded people. And, you know, I think you can imagine that that's the future for Iran. And the other thing about this is that because they're not wasting their money on nukes, I really don't think the nuke program, I mean, Israel has nukes, America has nukes, Iran doesn't need nukes, because you can spend the same amount of money on 10 or 100 times as many weapons. And since they're being made in China anyway, and we're talking about the GCC, right, which is like the Gulf Trade Agreement, right, and their association with China, that they can order those drones from Alibaba.com to Iran or to wherever there are Iranian citizens in, you know, Berlin or New York or wherever from China. And all of a sudden you've got drones that can be used in a mass at any moment that are all, you have to believe this, there are definitely drones that are weaponized that are across the United States and across the world from people that have left Iran. And I'm just saying they're not necessarily Muslims. The Iranians that are going to do that might not be the radical religious ones. They might be the ones that are so upset with Islam that blame Israel for Islam being so big of an issue of their country and blame the CIA, that we might see a new side of Iran that's a secular, almost ideologically motivated revolution.
That's what it's
similar to
been.
communism.
Islam
Yeah.
is an ideology, not a religion. It's the same thing with Zionism, and that's the accusation. People are really ready to make that accusation, and rightfully so, that what Herzl came up with was something that was secular, that wasn't actually a religious movement for as it relates to what the actual religion itself is. Islam is the same way, but it's different at the same time, because their whole ideology doesn't correspond. Like, they're not the same ideology. They just happen to both be ideologies presenting as though that this is a religion. If you have a political ideology taking the place of a religion, like, isn't that kind of the epitome of what we talk about when we talk about like idolatry or something, where it's like this is a stand-in for the thing in itself? So yeah, I don't really know.
I heard that they're talking about replacing with the Shah's son. Like, didn't we place that Shah in back in the 70s?
So,
right, and that's interesting that like the Republicans who were talking about how they want a democratically elected government are talking about returning the Shah, who's known for war crimes and everything else. The entire family are not that much better, realistically. I mean, there's a reason why the revolution happened in the first place. But to replace their democratically elected leader with an emperor, a Shah, I mean, that's, thanks Fox News, right? It's a Fox News list.
Yeah. So what they're saying, who knows? Everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. But when you look at Rubio and all these folks, they're saying they want somebody to just be a stand-in. It's like a guy who's been in Indiana or wherever he's been at, where they want him to be a transitionary leader that's not really meant to be permanent, but it's somebody to oversee moving into a democratically elected system. But I don't really know I don't want to pretend that I know what's going to happen with any of this. We could end up with this as like a limited skirmish, like the 12-day war that we had last year, or it could go for 50 fucking years and now it's just a total disaster. Like, it really could go either way. I don't know. I have my own optimistic view of what I would like to see happen, but I'm not going to go into a slippery slope fallacy in either direction with that, because time will tell,
That's pretty fair. Well, I mean, this has been a pretty exciting adventure for Synctank. I love you all. Is there anything you want to share before we go? Let me pull up your links as well.
Yeah, I would say plugs, man. We need to do some plugs. I need to move the rest of these calendars out because as soon as I finish moving these sampler packs, Donut and I can start working on a new calendar that has completely different dates and new artwork and new everything. So if you want to help,
dude, I would love to create a new calendar. My proposal is 13 months, and we get rid of Augustus, August, and July,
July. If you want to make
replace it with
calendar, I feel like that would be perfect. We could have like all the movie dates and all the director dates, and we can do whatever you want.
How many cards do you have? How many trading cards do you have? Because I got your calendar.
Designs? I think I'm around 80 something total.
I want all of them. How can I get all of them?
I'm working on it. I'm working on. See, here's the. Let me just quick inside baseball, really quick. But I've had to order them in like sets, and some of the sets are not on the exact same stock as the other sets. So I usually like don't combine all of them together. But like the full everything is about like 80 cards right now, and then if you add one foil of each, then it's like over 100.
I kind of like, to be totally frank with you, this is not helpful to you at all. Probably will hate this, but I'm not that stoked on that the card isn't done on that. Like it's got a glossiness to it. So like, and we got the Alex Jones one. I'm like, I want all of them. Although it's got a glossy quality that wasn't as common for the traditional baseball cards.
Dude, it has been hard to find an actual offset printer. What you were talking about is craft paper, like the brown inside filler that looks like wood pulp almost.
You got it. Yeah,
I have tried to hunt down. The problem is no one really makes a lot of these anymore. Like you can amalgamate it, and then the cards end up costing like $1 a piece, and then the pack's got to be like 20 a piece. I'm trying my best to find the best card printer to do.
You know what?
Everything.
I shouldn't talk shit because they did also make cards like this later. So it's not like this is unheard of for baseball cards like it is.
Trust me, no, dude, I've been all the way. I mean, like I have been trying to recreate as accurate as possible, and I will get there, but it's not a quick path. And the only way that you can help me get there is by grabbing one of these sampler packs. You're going to get 3 different comics. I throw in way more than you see here. I just make sure that you get at least this, but you're probably getting a few more cards, a few more stickers, as much as I can fit in these little packs under 3 ounces.
I love the color in the Illuminati pamphlet.
They're all going to be color now. From now on, all these pamphlets are going to be in color.
Wow, cool, man. Yeah, no, it's cool. It's a quality package. Yeah.
We need like Andreuary and Thomas Sember, like Tom Arch or something like that, and like I don't know, like Nicole Vember and David Tebber. I'm just saying, when we invent our new calendar, it's going to be great. Yeah. Okay. So. Sorry, say again.
Oh no, it's just that's a really good idea.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like we could have a 13-month calendar. It'd be like 20 days each month. It's a couple, like
look at this: $20 paid shipping, $20 even, and this shows up in the mail. That's it. That's
you can't even buy gas for that anymore after this war. So yeah, get this so you still can. Super important. Okay, and then make sure you go to MK Ultrasound 723 so you can check out David's work. He's got all kinds of amazing sync films. He just recently did some music and a video sync with Nate Hedork. Would also recommend checking her work out. We did the video on Zion, Illinois together, and she also has a new album that came out, Liminal World, which has this amazing logo. Which just
that was last week, right?
Yeah, and the watch party was last week.
All the songs on this are good, but Freedom Boulevard hits really close to home, literally. So like that's it's a quintessential song related to this area. So yeah, there was an old man that we knew and we talked to repeatedly for like a while, for a couple of years or whatever. This guy's house went down a cliff. And near my home, there's a road that when I was growing up, when I was actually in elementary school, the whole road collapsed into a valley. And this guy's house, years after the rest of the road collapsed, his house went down the cliff. And what was left was a shed in front of the house that he moved in there with his wife. And so we talked to this guy, and now he's since passed. But at one point, we had rainstorms, and the guy actually like tried to physically stop more mud from sliding down the hill so that he wouldn't lose his shed. Jeez. And then he got stuck in the mud in the rainstorm, and his wife ended up calling 911, and they were able to pull him out. But he was like up to his chest in mud, trying to hold the thing physically from falling more. It's so insane. But yeah, I recommend that song.
Crazy. Yeah, so definitely check out Liminal World, and you can go to David Plate's, MP Ultrasound 723 to find his work. Go to syncbook.com, and you can get all sorts of copies of all sorts of sync films right there, which is definitely worth your time to do synchromistic research. And then if you go to Miss Nick 06, you'll find Anna Nicole Wordsmith, and the Immortal Technique song Point of No Return mentions Solomon's Temple and Al Aqsa. I mean, just for an example taste of what you'll find on Anne Nicole's page. Some of the best syncs on the internet. You do a pretty good job decoding the matrix. So make sure you're subscribed. Yeah. Anything else you guys
this is like, Anna, you would, oh man, I don't know how we can get this now, but Subliminal Synchrosphere was was probably the most complex esoteric blog that I've ever known in my life. And you really remind me of the guy he was from Dublin. He went by Horse Lover Fat, which is a Philip K. Dick reference, I think. Is that Divine Invasion or the other, or Valis? I forget. But the point is he used to do this like complex analysis with wordplay and would present images very similar to you do, where he's like the classic like Pepe, make all the connections, like that meme. But like you remind me more of his stuff than anyone I've seen since him. And I think he deleted his entire blog, but you can actually find it through Wayback Machine. So like I think Alex one time connected showed me that you can still find his research, but it just went on and on and on and on for days.
Let me just do a quick little pro tip too, that if there's something like that where you're like, oh, but you can still find it on Wayback, print that thing out to a PDF immediately and save it somewhere.
Yeah, I want to do that.
Wayback Machine goes down and gets wiped all the time.
Okay, maybe it's gone now. Maybe you can help me with that later, Thomas, because I can't. Last I tried to find it myself, I couldn't. I think Alex found something, but yeah, I don't know. You do that regularly? You use Wayback Machine to find shit?
And then whenever I find it, I save it because I've seen it just get wiped so freaking often.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do it other than to like copy paste the entire page for each one and then put that in and then put it into a file or something. Is that what you're saying? Like make a PDF out of it, or how do you
no? I mean, you can just the whole load it, file print,
or command save. You get command print will make it a PDF, but you can also press command save and save the HTML page archive, which is another way to get all the data that they have.
Yeah, well, let's help make that happen, because I think like. I think Anna, you would like appreciate this blog more than fucking anything on the entire internet.
Yeah, what was his name again? Sorry.
He went by Horse Lover Fat, but his blog was called the Subliminal Synchrosphere.
Okay. Yeah.
Subliminal
phenomenal work. What's his name? Horse Lover 34.
Horse Lover Fat. PHAT,
Horse Lover Fat is a character from Valis, by the way.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm reading that. I'm only like halfway through.
Dude, I've just been playing the Valis games from the Japanese TurboGrafx system, and they're great. I'm gonna say that. Although it's like about
how insane like Valis is as it relates to like politics, like what's been happening with Trump, because his whole treatment about Nixon in that, like that there's basically like, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it's this loop that we exist within, which is actually like a twist back around. It's almost like a video cassette or something. Like we're trapped in a loop, and we're trapped in a paradigm. It's the same premise that he goes into, and like Flow My Tears, the policeman said, and where it's like an alternate universe, that or Man in the High Castle, but like that there's like these certain things that'll happen that are like cracks in that simulation or that paradigm that we exist within. So he would argue that Watergate, maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but from my memory, it was like he's arguing that like Watergate is an example of a crack in that projected paradigm matrix that we exist within. So like in terms of like, and so speaking to like corruption, like showing like what a lie this is all based on, that it's like something, it's like he's treating it like a shell or something, like that's cracking, I don't know. It's weird, man. I need to get I keep taking my Exogesis book back from Bill, and then he keeps asking for it again, so I'm just like, I would keep wanting to look at it, but it's just like, okay, yeah,
maybe just get another copy.
I know, I might, yeah. It was like, yeah, I got that in like 2020 and started getting into it, and ever since Bill's been living here, he's had it for the most part. But yeah, should get another copy. It's true. Sorry. You're muted.
No, I'm gonna do a show right after this about Iran. It's called "And Iran So Far Away." So we'll be doing that, and I'll hope to see you there, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.
When do you sleep?
When I'm, no rest for the wicked, and you can sleep when you're dead, and I'll join you.
You don't sleep when you're dead. That's a lie.
Really?
It doesn't. Yeah, it's two different things.
How do you know?
Because I saw Ren and Stimpy.
Saw in a movie.
I saw a Reddit thread.
All right. God bless you, and
In the static of the night, where the signals collide, David plates and K ultrasound, spinning truths you can't hide. Thomas paranoid America, with a gaze to the skies, sees the patterns in the chaos, where the mystic truth lie. Frequencies alive, feel the pulse in the air, synchronism calling, are you aware? Synctank, diving deep in the stream, chasing shadows of meaning in a digital dream. And his words, they ignite like a spark in the haze. Andreas weaves the unknown through the cosmic maze. And it echoes with the pen that cuts through. Every syllable's a cipher, every line rings true. Andreas Xirtus, threading stars in the code, guides the seekers of secrets down a synchronic road. Frequencies alive, hear the hum in the dark. Synctank's revelation, it's the fire, the spark. Synctank, diving deep in the stream, chasing shadows of meaning in a digital dream. And his words, they ignite like a spark in the haze. Andreas weaves the unknown through the cosmic maze. In the echo of the airwaves, where the symbols align, every glitch is a message, every pause is a sign. And culture sounds vibration, paranoid's watchful stare, wordsmiths rhyme and insert his vision, truth is everywhere. Synctank, diving deep in the stream, chasing shadows of meaning in a digital dream. And his words, they ignite like a spark in the haze. Andreas